Oh my God. So gross.
Fams. Welcome back to the
so gross.
Fams.
You literally just burped in front of the entire audience.
No, I didn't. It was before we went live, right? Please, Oz, tell me it was before.
No.
No.
He literally said your marks.
Is your mic hot right now? Could they hear you? I feel like Oz set me up over there. I'm way too. Let me go back to my spot. Is this better? Now I'm centered, right? Is that good? You wish. You son of a beeswax. Welcome back to the Combo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Oz with the overalls and his glasses because his eyes can't read, are on the ones and twos.
Listen, I don't need you to be ableist or ageist right now, Pasta, because you're climbing up those numbers real quick. So let's be kind to our brothers and sisters, as Oz calls them.
Oz, could you take me back a little bit, or because I look like a giant compared to Fee right now?
Well, everybody's a giant compared to me, first of all. So I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is.
Guys, thank you so much. I don't know what that means, but I'm just gonna laugh. Not everybody looks like a giant next to you, fam. Anyways, guys, it's gonna be a great show today. I got my sweatshirt on because it's a little cold over here in California. I think it's like 58 outside. Wow. And I know all the people like in Ohio and
that's like shorts weather, Pasta. Come on.
I know Oz is like giving me the middle finger behind.
After going to DC and New York, I'm like, shit, I'm ready for this. Let's go. Give me a blizzard. Let's go to Moscow, fam. Let's go to Moscow. We might have to.
Listen, we have to. There's something we didn't put it in the folder today. I think I sent it to you. We sent it on that chat, Sean Penn is out there doing a documentary, fam.
They have to bring in Hollywood to narrative manage, right?
Their job, obvious. Man. That's their job.
Yeah.
End of story.
So, fams, we have a very good show. A lot of people have been asking us a lot of questions about stuff we've talked about before, but we realized not everybody watched us back then. So we're going to repeat some of the things. And this is me. This is like the effort I'm going to do to go back to how we got here, how everything started. I told you guys yesterday on my stream that we were going to go deep into it. But first, fam.
Yes.
We have kind of sort of along the same.
It is.
Vicinity. That's the word I was looking for. We have Brianna Joy Gray brought on Center for American Progress, ex-Center for American Progress worker, current Bernie Sanders foreign policy advisor, which makes a lot of sense as to why Bernie's foreign policy is shite. Matt Dust. And by the way, I don't think you put it in here, but Max Blumenthal once asked him a question and he miserably failed.
No, the audio wasn't great, you know what I'm saying? But I did find something. Alex Rubenstein immediately sent me a different tweet that we were able to put up in there. Thank you, Alex, of course. Fam, I just want to reiterate too as well, when you say we're going back, we are going back. We've talked about this stuff for a long, long time. Now it's come to fruition today. But everything that's happening today and everything we're going to talk about, and Fam left put together a nice folder to lay it out for you guys, what's going on. We've talked about it. It's going to happen. And, it's been happening for years. And that's why we are where we're at today.
So fam, take it away.
Let's do it. Trey Wright. Hey, fam. Love you all. Keep speaking truth and fuck the cryberry cuck children that whine at the two of you for no reason. Thank you, Bubba. Because when you show us the love, it makes it all worthwhile. Guys, it's Friday. That's usually the day when everybody's out kicking it, doing something else. Hit the like button, hit the share button, Rokfin, YouTube's, let's go, let's get rolling. So, fam, I think it's important to put this up there because this is kind of the progressive mindset. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, fam, the one person we said was the worst on Bernie Sanders' staff was Matt Duss, the foreign policy advisor from Center for American Progress. True or false?
I think we did say it was him, and I think a close second was Faz because he came from the same contingent of the Center for American Progress. In fact, most of his staff did. the only people that we liked at that time were David Serrata, Brianna Joy Gray, and literally nobody else. I'm Nina Turner. That was it. Like everybody else was like tainted in some way or another. And so, and now nobody's really left. I mean, God, okay. It's so much has happened in such a short amount of time, but let's go ahead. Cause I mean, I'm not against you interviewing people, adversarially, people like this, adversarially, like, okay, bring on Matt Duss and like have a conversation with him, ask him, questions that put him in a bind.
Yeah.
But this was more of a discussion and a very soft type of interview.
Yes.
From what I saw. So that was my issue with it. Wasn't there anybody else that you could have picked to discuss Ukraine, Russia that wasn't Matt Duss? I mean, I'm not going to police who you bring on, but I am going to criticize it if it's not, if you're not pushing back at the bullshit he's saying, because he said a bunch of bullshit. So I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, fam, it also speaks volume. The two things is, number one, Matt Duss wouldn't take an interview where he'd get challenged anyways right now. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that if the Gray Zone asked Matt Duss to take an interview with any member of the Gray Zone, that he would take that right now. I firmly believe that. So he understood it was a safe space. And I think it's important to point out that Matt Duss was the progressive choice. I mean, this is where we've come to. And it also speaks volume, fam, because when you look at this interview and you watch this interview, and I don't want to take anything away from Brianna Joy Gray, but it's not her area. It's not her wheelhouse. But more importantly, that's why we started the show. We've been talking foreign policy since day one. Progressives don't pay attention to foreign policy. They don't understand what's going on. Americans don't pay attention to foreign policy. They don't know what's going on. Like, I literally saw a progressive activist in the streets with, standing by, Ukrainians in Russia. Like, I stand by Ukrainians. Like, are you fucking kidding me? And I'm not saying you shouldn't stand by anybody who's getting innocent people who are getting bombed. We never want to see that. But where were you for 8 years while people were getting shelled on a regular basis in the Donbass? And I think we're going to break it down. This interview is important to break down because we have to understand. I'm going to take the time to say, hey, progressives out there, hey, leftists, let's learn about foreign policy, because a lot of you people out there who are saying stuff today, once you get all the information in a couple weeks, maybe a couple days, might be a couple months for some of you, you're going to have a different stance on what's going on once you know the facts, because it's easy to understand if you understand everything that's been going on and involved. We've done everything short of going there. So I think that's the next step for us, because we've been talking about this shit since day one, fam. We've been talking about this shit. So,
fam, I have my Russian hat ready. So let's go.
Let's do it. Okay, so let's play the first one, where Bree pretty much asked Matt to give us how all this got started. And I want you to pay attention, number one, where every single neocon, neo-lib, warmongering establishment person starts it off from. They started off from an American CIA imperialist point of view. They might start from Crimea, saying it was annexed, but not. But just listen to Matt Duss. And Bree is pretty open, fam, that she wants to make a show where she's baby stepping the situation. But this is not probably the first guest you want to get on there for that,
Right.
Yeah. I know there's been a lot of commentary about this, but my feeling often is that the way that foreign policy in particular is talked about excludes a lot of folks from the conversation who haven't been following it for a long time. And I want this to kind of be baby's first Ukrainian episode. So could you help set the scene of why we are in this conflict to begin with?
Sure. I mean, it's always with situations like this, when you want to appreciate and respect the amount of kind of complexity and nuance, it's hard to know how far to go back. So, people will criticize whatever choice they make. So let's just say that it's clear that for many years that Russia and Vladimir Putin in particular have, opposed kind of Ukraine's tilt toward Europe, toward the West, to talk about Ukraine joining NATO. At the same time, this is not something that is necessarily unique to Putin. And I think there are actually valid questions with how much this actually plays into Putin's concerns. I mean, I think he wrote a piece last year, and in his rambling speech that he gave just yesterday, justifying the latest invasion of Ukraine, the NATO expansion. And again, just for listeners, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, founded in the wake of World War II, specifically as a U.S.-Europe military alliance to confront and oppose Soviet expansion. And that has expanded since the collapse of the Cold War to include a number of former Soviet countries. And that's been an issue for leaders beyond just Putin. I mean, American officials themselves have acknowledged that this is a very, very touchy political issue for Russians for obvious reasons. But as far as how big a role that plays in Putin's own concerns, I think it was one part, but only one part in the kind of vast sort of revisionist history that he laid out in the speech that he gave justifying the invasion. And I would encourage folks to read that speech. Actually, I think Max Fisher in the New York Times had a really good kind of analysis piece by piece of that speech, because it was a pretty, it's not exactly shocking, but it was another step in terms of completely revising or just completely denying Ukraine's existence as an independent state, denying Ukrainian culture as a real thing, denying the Ukrainian people as a separate people, saying that this is just one civilization, which of course means a Russian dominate.
Cam, do you want to go and start off with that, with how Matt Duss is kind of setting the scene? Because, I like the way he just gives a disclaimer. People are going to criticize me anyways. Yeah, no shit, Matt Duss. Of course we're going to criticize you because we know what you're going to say. But if you'd like to start off, I'll piggyback off that, because I also, there's so many things. Go ahead, fam.
It's hard to say where to start. I mean, from the beginning, the progressives frame this, the way they feed this to progressives is you are discounting Ukraine and the sovereignty of Ukraine. The CIA once said one of the ways to get the left to join them was to go through the anarchist mentality. Now, real anarchists, are different than Twitter anarchists, but there are a lot of people that call themselves anarchists and these communists and socialists. And what they do is they say, oh, we have to recognize the sovereignty and the independence of these people. And they completely obfuscate everything else, completely dismiss the history, the how we got here, the historical context, which is why we're going to go into it. And he completely acts like this is an attempt by Putin to take over Ukraine, to annex Ukraine. And this is what the narrative you'll be hearing from these people. Putin is trying to create the Russian Empire again. And these people aren't going to be independent anymore, which is completely contradictory because he literally just recognized the Donetsk and the Luhansk region, right? And then it just doesn't make any sense. He's literally going in there because he was asked from this sector of the population that is ethnically Russian and that has been under complete bombardment and attack for the last 8 years. He's not talking about any of that. He's calling it revisionist history when Putin is saying these are the reasons why. He's not talking about the violation of the Minsk treaty. He's not talking about NATO's expansion eastward, where they said they weren't going to expand and they have continued expanding beyond the territories. I mean, you can see that. I don't know if I put it in there. I might add it in there, but it's like a map, and you can see how NATO has expanded in the last century. And so, I mean, it's very obvious. He's saying a lot of lies, but he's kind of wrapping these lies in a lot of just garbled, U.S. State Department jargon in order for people to feed it to.
I know there's been a lot of commentary
the sector of Brianna Joy Gray's audience, because he knows these people are going to be like, yeah, you're right. We need to recognize and stand with the Ukrainian people. We need to stand with all people who want sovereignty. I'm a communist and Putin isn't a communist. He's a right winger. So you know what? I'm going to stand with the people demanding sovereignty from this oligarch. He knows exactly who he's talking to.
Yeah. Fam, Putin, he hates gays, and you know that. But, I also listen to the, not just what's being said, but how it's being said, because it's like this technique that these, when you want to fool the progressives, you kind of half-ass, acknowledge and address it. It's a very complicated situation over here, but, I'm saying we are addressing it. However, and it's always that pivot, and I don't know why that a lot of progressives kind of take that on face value and go like, well, they understand it, but the situation's much more complicated. Matt kind of laid it out, and then you continue to make sure you hit the demonizing points. Putin wants the Soviet expansion, he's trying to hurt their culture and their ethnicity and everything. And in actuality, what Putin is trying to do, he's trying to protect it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, I mean, that's just
30%. Yeah, we can get to the next clip, but 30% of the people in that region are Russian. Like, so you can't, like, they're trying to erase the Ukrainian culture. Like, what are you talking about? Like, there are a lot of people who are still, who want it in 2014, who voted for I'll remember his name in a second, but who voted for the pro-Russian democratically elected leader. And that in the region, it was about 90% of people, and they completely dismissed that. So
let's get to the second clip over here, fams.
So if you go back to 2014, you had, in what is now acknowledged as a Russian invasion of eastern Ukraine, in the region known as Donbass. This is the region in eastern Ukraine that contains the two provinces or oblasts that Russian forces or Russian affiliated forces occupied since 2014, and that conflict was basically frozen until about a year ago, when Russia slowly began to mass its forces on essentially three sides of Ukraine, including putting forces in Belarus, blockading it by the sea to the south, and putting what we have now close to 170,000 Russian troops on three sides. And as of yesterday, those troops have now gone into those regions in eastern Ukraine. The legal pretext given by Putin and by the Russian government is that we recognize the independence of these regions, and we are now acting on the basis of our own laws, which permits us to act in defense of Russian citizens in these independent regions. So that's where we are right now.
I like the way he kind of is like, as we know, as we acknowledge now that in 2014, it was an invasion by the Russians. It's, and that's the part that kind of blows my mind. You're like, wait a second, for the last 2 days, Russia just spanked the shit out of Ukraine. It let them know all around the country, quickly, fast. We see footage of Ukrainian soldiers like, oh, I ain't fucking around with this. What do you want me to sign? Put me in zip ties and just get me out of here. I comply. But they want you to believe, Matt wants you to believe, well, Putin just had like a little invasion in 2014, just to last for 8 years before we said, okay, now we're not playing around. I mean, it's just asinine. We all know what's going on, and I like the way he was also kind of like finger pointing to the other enemies. He made sure he mentioned Belarus in the whole situation. They just set up this parameter, fam. And here's the thing. Bree is not educated enough in this situation and in this topic to question, well, wait a second, wasn't there a regime change sponsored by the West in 2014? Like you don't know that to push back. So you set this parameters, this jumping off point, and I'm going to finish it real quick. This jumping off point where it's just, you can set sail on a whole bunch of imaginary bullshit that doesn't even make sense because you're not even starting off from the right point.
No, you can continue. All I was going to say was his name was Viktor Yanukovych. That was the man that was ousted. Yeah. With the help of the U.S. And of course the neo-Nazi regimes. Yeah. And you have the Guardian reminder right here, right? Viktor Yanukovych. Yeah.
Well, that's the whole thing, is that a lot of people go, and I always say this scenario, like they're like, Putin acted with a lot of restraint. These are ethnic speaking Russians that are now being bombed by the new government that was a regime change that they didn't want to acknowledge because they didn't think it was the right thing. They thought it was they're not going to acknowledge it. Can you imagine citizens, and I talked about this with Mark Sloboda, and that's why I even put up, even the fucking old Ukrainian president was like, dude, Putin, get involved. What are you doing? Don't let these people get slaughtered here. And Putin acted with a lot of restraint. And that's why I think just as of a couple of days ago, he's not playing anymore. We said this before. It's once the Biden administration took over, this is a different Russian Federation right now. They're not going to be as passive as they were in 2014. And a lot of citizens in Russia were mad at Putin for not acting right away. Like, let's go. Come on. Don't let these people get slaughtered here. And that's something that's just like kind of like, it's never, ever mentioned, because if it happened here in America, if there were some Americans that were living just north of the American border on the southern border of Canada, I mean, like, they were Americans, they would say, what about, not what a boot. They said that football was better than hockey. They're like Americans that are living in Canada, and they were there on the border. And if Putin, had some people overthrow the Trudeau government in Canada and start bombing those Americans that were in Canada,
can you imagine?
For 8 fucking years. Can you imagine the Americans going, Biden, what are you doing? They're bombing Americans in Canada with the new government that was overthrown. it would have never lasted that long. So when we say that Putin acted with a lot of restraint while people are going, he's going crazy. Like, no, you don't know the situation. He's not starting a war. He's ending it.
Yes, exactly, fam. Next clip.
Mike's on, or?
That's where we are right now.
Thank you. That's helpful. So my first question is, if the invasion really happened in 2014, I was reflecting on whether or not the kind of discourse we're having now about World War III existed back then. And there was some of it, but I don't recall it being at quite the fever pitch it is right now. To what do you attribute that?
I mean, I think it's a couple things. One is it was a much smaller operation back then. I mean, the presence of, again, 170,000 troops and artillery and armored tanks, etc., massing on the borders.
And just for context, that's something like, what, 75% of Russia's standing army? It's significant, right?
It's hugely significant. That's a good question. I'm not sure of the percentage, but this is the biggest mobilization of Russian military forces that we've seen since the Afghanistan invasion back in the late 70s. So it is very big. It's the biggest one in 40 years. I think that is very significant. In 2014, the operation was different. You had what were called at the time little green men, who were basically, military contractors, essentially militias, which there's some evidence were acting at the behest, under the command, or at least closely associated with the Russian government. But there was at least a level of deniability. That was the whole point, was Putin decided to act in a way that there was a level of deniability about what was really happening. And of course, he's trying that to some extent now by claiming that there are Ukrainian attacks on these regions. They've used the word genocide. There's zero evidence any of that is going on. I mean, I think the idea that the Ukrainians would seek to provoke the Russian forces with 170,000 Russian troops massed at their border kind of beggars belief. But those are the claims that Putin is making. But I think this is a much, much more overt action than we saw in 2014, with a much larger military force. And I think that leads to some of this rhetoric you're talking about.
Bam.
You're going to tell me that there is no evidence that these people have been shelled, bombed, and literally murdered for the last 8 years. There's plenty of evidence, and we're going to show you the plenty of evidence. It's just not put out by the mainstream media and the State Department talking heads like Matt Duss, who bring Anna Joy Gray's platform. You know what irritates me, Pasta? When we bring Magnus on the show, when we bring a libertarian on the show, because that's essentially, Magnus is like more of like an anarchist libertarian type of guy. People come at us. How dare you platform this fash, blah, blah, blah. How dare you platform a State Department talking head, warmonger, and not adversarially go after him? I don't understand. If you're not educated on the subject, then you shouldn't do it. Yeah. Because then you're doing a disservice to your audience, especially a person that has a vast audience. And then, of course, you're perpetuating these myths, these lies that are completely on the side of empire and not on the side of the people, and not on the side of anything that you remotely preach to be about, like any sort of progressive value, any sort of anti-war, anti-imperialist rhetoric. And all that shit goes out the window now. When you bring people like Matt Duss in, who's completely lying about this entire situation. And it's so infuriating to me. Like, there are so many other people. And Nico said it as much. You could have brought anybody else, dude. Like, so many other people. You're bringing in Matt Duss, you might as well bring in a member of the Azov battalion. I mean, these people, they're so focused on the right winger, the Nazi, the Trump supporter, and yet they don't equate the same warmongering neocon voices that they bring on their own shows without any pushback. It's just really...
Well, it was like the minor league to what MSNBC did. MSNBC will be back with John Bolton.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean,
we'll be back with Matt Duss.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And that also kind of disturbed me too, as well, is that the point where Bree stopped to make a point was kind of a Western media talking point. Well, this is the biggest massive amounts of troops moved to the border now. Now, can you clarify that? Let me justify why it's different now. Let me talk about, why things are happening now. And that, I mean, saying that there is no evidence is ridiculous. Let's just take a look. And listen, I spent a couple hours yesterday looking at videos in Donetsk. Look at this over here, right here. This is the airport right now. And it's just, take a look. So, I mean, this is in the Donbass, guys.
So, back in the airport territory, not as close as it was before, admittedly, because the game has changed here at Donetsk Airport. The last time I was here, in fact, was at the end of October, and at that time was coming 2 or 3 times a week. I was actually getting right to the positions by the old terminal, which at that time was impassable. And then that time, things became kind of static here. There wasn't movement, so went to other positions for a few weeks, and then had intended to come back in November. But then, of course, I got injured at the end of November, and now it's almost 2 months, and things have definitely changed here. We've now got the battalion Vostok, as we reported at the start of November. The battalion Vostok, the Vostok battalion, we're going to be sent here. Givy Somali battalion left. We've still got Motorola's Sparta battalion here, but it's predominantly under the control of the Vostok battalion. And they basically put in place a protocol, so there's a procedure to get in, and so even, for example, the positions where we were, there's no access permitted there, no access at all. The old terminal is under the control of the Vostok battalion, Motorola's battalion, they're working together. But they say that that's still extremely dangerous, that's still mined, and it's impassable. So where we are is near, we're at the airport, all around here. Destroyed aircraft, and obviously the state of the airport itself, a $750 million airport, is in a state of complete destruction all around. You can see here, it's a debris and fuselage of airplanes, which gives you an idea of what's further.
Fam, did you see that airport? That was the international airport they had there. You know what I'm saying? Like, planes would go out on a regular basis. It's just blown to smithereens. So what are you telling me that there's no fucking evidence of shit going on over there? I mean, what do you want us to believe, that the Russians did that to the people they're now trying to liberate? I don't know what your explanation is going to be about these things. That's their international airport. You can see commercial airliners all blown up. So Matt Duss is just straight out lying. And at no point does Bree make any significant pushback whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, that says it all.
Yeah. And you made a tweet about this the other day. This next clip, once again, do imperialism. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
Hey, here we go.
I know Putin is doing imperialism. I'm like, what? What do you mean? But you can't say shit like that. Like, you have to be specific.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the argument that this is an area of Ukraine where there are people who have, cultural identity affiliation with Russia? Obviously, the way that we do borders and do colonialism and do imperialism mean that there are all kinds of people living all across different borders who have different affiliations like that. Yeah. And that there are separatists in the region, whether or not they're being informed, propagandized, boosted by Russia, who would prefer a different kind of national affiliation, and that there is a who started it conversation going on between, whether or not you want to attribute it to the separatists throwing the first punch or Ukrainians throwing the first punch. I
mean, I think what you said about, yes, there exactly as you said, in the eastern regions, there are people who consider themselves perhaps more Russian than Ukrainian. They are Russian speakers. There are also people who are Russian speakers who are, very much a part of Ukraine, want to continue being part of Ukraine. They speak Ukrainian as well as Russian, and the farther you get west, the kind of, I think the Ukrainian culture asserts itself a bit more. But as you said as well, this is not unique. I mean, we have a lot of countries around the world, borders, particularly in Europe. Let's remember, borders were drawn with every few weeks through, the late, 19th century and into the 20th. But, the way to handle that is obviously not through an invasion. The way to do that is to promote kind of a pluralistic democracy, a government that represents its own people, or all of its people. I would just add that using this excuse of, we are acting to protect our ethnic brothers and sisters is a very familiar kind of excuse that's offered throughout history, and rarely truthfully, and rarely ends up well.
But the United States can constantly use the excuse of trying to care about X, Y, Z minority while simultaneously ignoring the minorities in other countries like Somalia, like Palestine, like Yemen. Like, okay, so all of a sudden, like the minorities, the Russian and ethnic and Slovak people that were getting shelled for the last 8 years, where nobody said two shits because Vladimir Putin didn't do anything. I mean, like he, you know, the moment he pushes back against U.S. imperialism is the moment then people start caring about these people suddenly that they didn't even know, they couldn't even fucking point to Ukraine on a map. But yet all of a sudden now, oh my gosh, yes, we have to stand with Ukraine. The hypocrisy and the gaslighting of the empire is just disgusting.
Yeah. And you know, to me, like, you know, Matt Duss is no different than, like, you know, Colin Powell, just a little bit different, with a little bit more fluffier, nicer words for the buzzwords that the progressives
Which
like
is
to hear.
worse.
You know what I'm saying? It is worse. It's more cryptic, it's more dangerous, it's more sinister, and we get that. But the thing I really want to, since we all laid that out, and you can see what he's saying, he'll justify anything with this just fucking, he'll say a lot, but won't fucking mean anything. But the thing I really want to point out was in the beginning, what I think the new battle cry, or the new place where a lot of progressives are putting their flags, is like, you know, we can be critical of when Putin does imperialism and when America does imperialism at the same time. You know, there's certain people, I also quote tweeted somebody doing that. Like, that's the new kind of virtue signaling.
We'll talk about that.
You know, you could be critical of both sides. Any type of bombing is awful. You know, that's where they're at now. And it's like, they don't, listen, I don't want to see anybody be fucking bombed. But at the end of the day, we understand what Putin's doing because we've seen what's unfolded over the last 8 years there. You know, and none of this would have happened if in 2014, you know, Steve and I talked about that on the morning show the other day. Maybe go back to 2004, maybe go back to 1991. But you got to understand what's going on, the influence. What should be said by progressives who do their homework is, bottom line, we don't need to be over there. Get the fudge out. Stop messing around. You know, stop interfering and involving yourselves. But we know it's more about, you know, NATO getting money for, weapons, the military-industrial complex, you know, the taking of resources. You know, that's what it's all about. That's what our foreign policy is about. That's what our imperialism is about. That's what our intervention is about. It's about raping resources, global hegemony. You know, and we're never going to stop. But this kind of point that Bree is trying to make, and I think a lot of people, they feel, you know, virtuous about it. It's really just a bullshit point. It's really that you could be critical of both sides and bullshit, and we should ask for Putin to stop as well. I mean, I saw some actress online going, Putin, if I was your mother, I was just born too late. Like trying to contact with Putin's emotional side, the mad maniac that the Western media has put him out to be. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. You can just go ahead and play the next clip because I would say the same thing you said. We'll talk more about the Putin is doing imperialism later.
It seems like this is in some ways related to the factions that have emerged on the left with approach to this issue. Mm-hmm. So there is one faction that, I don't want to mischaracterize anybody. I mean, there's kind of like ridiculous versions of each faction, I would say. But there is a group that's being accused of not sufficiently recognizing that what Russia is doing is imperialism too, because they are overly invested or so blinded by their distaste for American imperialism that they might go too far in saying that Russia is doing absolutely nothing wrong because they don't want that to become a pretext for America becoming overly involved.
Yeah.
And whether or not you credit aspects of that argument, I think has something to do with these questions around self-determination and how we should respond to a group of people's articulation of wanting to identify nationally differently, putting aside the question of how widespread that desire is and whether or not it's, you know, propagandized or motivated by other things and stuff like that. And I wonder, you know, if you've thought at all about that bigger picture question, because it does seem to be at the root of so many of the foreign policy conflicts.
Pam.
I think we should just roll right into the next video. I think I might have made a mistake not piecing them together, but done them by accident because, you know, once again, I said, like, she's framing the the argument or the debate or the discussion as if, like we shouldn't hold Russia. We shouldn't just endlessly, bow down to what Putin's doing because it's a dangerous point that we can once again be critical of both sides. And that's what we should be doing. And you think that might be what we should be doing because you don't understand the whole picture. You don't understand the whole story. And there's only one answer. I said it before and we'll probably say it again a couple times this show. Go ahead and do the next clip.
Mm-hmm. That end up coming up on this show.
Yeah, no, and let me just say, I'm aware of, the kind of tendencies you're talking about. Certainly, I read them, I listen to them, agree or disagree, and I'll just say, I think, reflexive opposition to imperialism and suspicion of the American military-industrial complex and the foreign policy establishment is a good starting point. As a general rule, given especially what we've seen over the past 20 years, obviously even farther back, but especially over the past 20 years, as we've seen, human rights and liberating peoples and all the other stuff used as a way to draw in liberals and even progressives to support these disastrously destructive military interventions and adventures and misadventures around the world. But I think, the way I would approach it, and I think the way Senator Sanders has approached it, is focusing on this question of solidarity. What does it mean to kind of be in solidarity with the Ukrainian people in this case? What does it mean to be in solidarity with even perhaps people in eastern Ukraine, some of them who do want to be closer to Russia? I mean, again, haven't seen evidence myself that there is a large consensus in favor of that. Certainly, there's no large consensus in these regions to be caught in the middle of a new war that Russia is launching. But I think, looking at the anti-imperialist question, let's recognize the United States is guilty of a lot, but that should not prevent us from seeing what Russia is doing right now, which is imperialism, certainly in its own way. I think, again, referring to that speech that Putin gave yesterday, is overtly imperialism. I mean, he has made clear that he is not just trying to reconstruct the Soviet Union. He actually called the creation of Ukraine a product of Leninism and communism, and he was trying to reverse that. So he is actually reaching back into a much, much, much earlier conception of kind of Russian imperial nationalism. So I think it's, for those of us who want to, oppose this sort of violence wherever it arises.
Fam, tell me you're not a warmonger. Wait, let me do it right. Fam, tell me you're a warmonger while telling me that you're not a warmonger. Matt Duss, go ahead.
I mean, this is, you notice how he put in Lenin and communism in order to, he knows exactly who he's talking to. He knows exactly that he can paint, and that's exactly what the next caveat is for these people, is Putin is a right-winger and Trump likes Putin. Therefore, if you support Russia, you're a right-winger. Notice also how he said you can stand in solidarity only with Ukrainian people or the people in Eastern Ukraine, but he didn't mention Russia, because they're still pushing this neo-McCarthyite type of sentiment towards Russia. You can't have any solidarity with Russians. That's not allowed, right? While simultaneously trying to tell these progressives, who some of them fancy themselves some sort of communists, that Putin is anti-communist and all this other crap, even as if that's relevant. Because even if that's the truth, is it relevant in this situation? No, but he knows that's the bait and switch. Ooh, yeah, you get them this way. I must oppose Putin because I'm a communist and communism tells me. It's just, he knows. And he's exploiting that very much so to get these people in line. And it's disgusting how he's even though throughout decades, especially in the last 20 years, we have seen, people go in there and trying to offer help. We've seen how that's been exploited. We need to stand in solidarity. And what Senator Sanders says, we're going to talk about what Sanders said. It's like solidarity, they've tarnished that word now because they're literally standing in solidarity
that's all they do.
With the neo-Nazis that the United States and the U.S. State Department, warmongers like George W. Bush and Barack Obama, and of course, the vast majority of the intelligence community. But please, by all means, stand in solidarity, progressives, with these people. Sure.
Yeah, and we've said this before. The people that are in control right now, especially when it comes to foreign policy, are the same people in 2014 that think that they're fighting against the old Soviet Union. They really are. Yep. And it's saying they can find a way to kind of twist words and, mention stand in solidarity. Like you said, that's now code for I don't know what the fuck I'm marching for. Just give me a reason to go stand out in the streets in solidarity.
Let me put a little flag on my Twitter.
something,
like,
yeah,
little Ukrainian
hieroglyphics
flag.
and stuff like that. But these people, the Victoria Nulands, the Jake Sullivans, the Anthony Blinkens, they're the same freaking people. The attaboy to Joe Biden that we'll get to eventually. These are the same people, and he just tells you right here. It's like this kind of like 1980s Cold War mentality they're still fighting against. We got to stop the Russian expansion and stuff. Guys, the wall came down a long time ago in East Germany. It's the Russian Federation. It's a totally different world. Just stop it. You're not fooling anybody. And like I said, when a lot of people come to fruition in a couple of weeks, when they get all the information, they're going to be like, oh, shit, man, maybe I shouldn't have supported neo-Nazis in the fucking Western Ukraine. You know, they'll understand the term Banderite, right? They don't understand it now, but they'll understand it too in the future. So I don't think we have to play the last clip, fam. If you want to, we can, but it's more the same bullshit.
Yeah, I'm nauseous. So
Well, think about me having to watch this and clip this up right here. I didn't make it all the way through the whole thing. And normally I would have stopped in about 6 minutes, right? But I went, 40 something odd minutes deep into the thing. And it knocked me out cold. My head was spinning after that shit. But yeah. Should we address some of the super rays real quick? Or do you want to just jump right into it and do it after this one?
Let's do it after this one, guys.
Gotcha.
We love you guys very much. Let's just go ahead and jump right in.
Share and like, guys.
This is a packed show. This is the most important, I think, part of the show that I think people who really needs a little bit of understanding as to how we got here, as to what's going on. You want a quick, refresher course. This is the most important part of the show, to the point where I have to put on my glasses now, like an old lady. Okay.
She's going for the glasses.
So how did we get here, right? Okay, so just to refresh everyone's mind, Russia had began striking military targets in Ukraine earlier on Thursday morning. Okay, this is just a refresher to what's happened in the last couple days, and it was this after Vladimir Putin recognized the independence of the two republics of Donetsk and Lugansk. And Moscow insisted on protecting the people of the Donbas region from Kiev's aggression, because they were asked by the leadership of these regions, right? And so, according to Moscow, Ukraine abandoned diplomacy with the civil conflict in the east. This of course, has been going on for years, and we're going to go into that. There was a break in the ceasefire agreements, and this has been, of course, linked to the 2014 coup that we have been talking about ad nauseum. So I want you guys to hear Putin's speech, part of it. Not the whole thing, obviously. Part of it that was translated. You should listen to the whole speech. It is not what Matt Duss was pointing it out it to be. But then we'll listen to Biden's speech, and you'll see the difference between those two speeches. So let's go ahead and hear Putin's speech.
Обстоятельства требуют от нас решительных и незамедлительных действий. Народные республики Донбасса обратились к России с просьбой о помощи. В связи с этим, в соответствии со статьей 51 частью 7 Устава ООН, санкции Совета Федерации России и во исполнение ратифицированных Федеральным собранием 22 февраля сего года договоров о дружбе и взаимопомощи с Донецкой Народной Республикой и Луганской Народной Республикой, мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции. Ее цель – защита людей, которые на протяжении 8 лет подвергаются издевательствам, геноциду со стороны киевского режима. Кто бы ни пытался помешать нам, а тем более создать угрозы для нашей страны, для нашего народа, должны знать, что ответ России будет незамедлительным и приведет вас к таким последствиям, с которыми вы в своей истории еще никогда не сталкивались. Мы готовы к любому развитию событий.
Okay. So he basically reiterated what I just said, that we're going to stand by the people of the Donbass that are being attacked. He talked about genocide. He talked about it's a strategic move. He didn't call it an invasion, etc. He reiterated basically the breakage of the treaty. It's just the same exact points. Anything you want to say, Pam, before we go to Biden's speech?
It's just, the way they kind of take the speech to what Matt Duss was saying and whatnot, and the way the mainstream media, Americans' perception of Putin is like that of a Rocky IV movie, Ivan Draga, and the Russian dictator just comes out, one hand, two hands, and three hands, and salutes the crowd like the big dictator. You know what I'm saying? And that's the problem. And I was talking to people about the situation, and they're like, well, it was the Russiagate thing that's been going on for the last several years. No, the movies too as well. We've been programming people. You know, I've had a lot of conservative friends of mine hit me up, and they want information because they know where to go to for their information, who's watching this stuff. But they're like, Putin's an asshole, isn't he, for what he just did? That's terrible. And I have to like, here, start off with this first video, then go to this video, whatnot. But on both sides of the aisle, this is something we were taught in school. This is something, me and Oz experienced growing up, in the movies and our culture, that Russia is the other one that has a gun at our throat as well. And that's who we have to be very careful with. And that's why, when it came to people like, I believe it was Mr. Cohen, Ambassador Cohen, who would talk about the number one job of our president when it comes to our foreign policy is to keep us out of war with Russia. Well, for quite some time, especially when it comes to this guy, Zombie Joe, it's been quite the opposite, because he surrounds himself with people who think that we are at war with that same character on Rambo 3. Remember that one where they made you root for the Mujahideen? I'll never forgive Sylvester Stallone for doing that to me as a kid.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's ingrained in the psyche of the vast majority of Americans.
Programs.
And of course, this is part of the whole Neil McCarthy push. I mean, this is Russiagate reinvented now with this bullshit. So let's hear what Uncle Joe said.
Putin is the aggressor. Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences. Today, I'm authorizing additional strong sanctions and new limitations on what can be exported to Russia. This is going to impose severe cost on the Russian economy, both immediately and over time. We have purposefully designed these sanctions to maximize the long-term impact on Russia and to minimize the impact on the United States and our allies. We've cut off Russia's largest bank, a bank that holds more than 1/3 of Russia's banking assets by itself. We cut it off from the U.S. financial system. And today, we're also blocking 4 more major banks. That means every asset they have in America will be frozen. Putin's aggression against Ukraine will end up costing Russia dearly, economically and strategically. We will make sure of that. Putin will be a pariah on the international stage.
He's the ultimate boogeyman, fam.
I mean, look at that language. Look at the verbiage. Look at the aggressive. Who's the aggressor? I mean, look at this. We have no business in Ukraine, even if we were warranted, like if it was warranted, like even if Ukraine was like, we have no business in meddling in those two countries' affairs. First of all, second of all, notice how he is they're joyful about this. Or we're going to impose these sanctions. We're going to freeze our assets. We're going to do this and that. Putin is the aggressor. While simultaneously, guys, this is Joe Biden. Joe Biden was the architect, of the 2014 coup. This is what we're going to get into. He put his son on the board of Burisma thereafter, and we're going to talk more about that even on Monday. Yeah. But this is the guy. He's talking about Putin being the aggressor. This is the guy that started everything. Are you fucking kidding me? Yeah. Why? Oh my God! It's
Putin this, Putin that, Putin this, Putin that. Let me tell you something. 10 years ago at the World Economic Forum, Putin stole my cupcake and shared it with Xi Jinping, and therefore I'm going to attack Putin. And then when he talks about the goddamn sanctions, right? Ladies and gentlemen out there, boys and girls, everybody, children of all ages, Mike Gravel said this before, sanctions are an act of war. Sanctions are an act of war. And who do they hurt, fam? The most vulnerable, the poor people.
Working class. Mm-hmm.
The working class. I mean, come on, ladies and gentlemen. And he's so proud to do that. And then a lot of donkeys will hear that stupid speech and say, I'm proud of my president today. Go Scratch.
Yeah.
Go Scratch.
Yeah, they're cheering it on. So now that we got that out of the way, let's go back to how this whole thing unfolded to this point that we're at. So what happened was that in 2014, there were protests in Kiev that ended with a Western-backed coup. Okay, there was mass demonstration in Kiev, and these demonstrations became known as the Euro Maidan, or simply the Maidan protests. And they began in late 2013 after then President Viktor Yanukovych decided to delay the signing of the EU association deal. Initially, they were peaceful protests, and then they were joined by these ultranationalists, okay? And of course, it spiraled into these riots in Kiev, and they started taking over administrative buildings. And by February 2014, they started taking factions that overthrew the Yanukovych's regime, the Yanukovych government. And of course, they had a very, very pro-EU and anti-Moscow political stance. And so they received Western support, not obviously just from the United States, but also from NATO. And there was a lot of people in the eastern and southern regions of this area that still had ethnic Russians, and a lot of people that were very much in favor of Russia and had ties to Russia. And in the city of Odessa, these anti-Maidan protests were soon suppressed. And you didn't hear about the anti-protests, right? And of course, in Donetsk and Lugansk, the regions, and the Black Sea's Autonomous Republic of Crimea, the pro-Russian protests persisted. But again, you didn't hear about that. So onward, did you want to say anything before we?
I just want to say, I want people to understand that Yanukovych was not like a hardcore Russian president. Like, he entertained the idea of joining the EU. He couldn't get a good deal, so he said no. So it wasn't like he was this hardcore, over-the-top Russian kind of puppet at all. So I just want to point that out, and please continue.
Yeah, he wasn't like a pro. Yeah, you're exactly right. But they were still, and we're gonna play that clip. They still weren't comfortable with him doing that. They still didn't think they could control him enough, which is why they, pushed the coup. Now, so then Crimea voted to leave Ukraine for Russia, right? And basically, what happened was the Crimeans voted to secede from Ukraine and rejoin Russia. And then Moscow later admitted it used its forces stationed in the region to ensure security during the events, while Ukrainian troops switched allegiance or left the Black Sea Peninsula without incidents. And then, of course, up until today, Kiev has refused to recognize Crimea's vote and reabsorption, as the majority of countries around the world, because the majority of countries around the world are favorable to the West and NATO-backed, right? And so the new Ukrainian government that took over restricted Moscow and Crimean authorities, and this started the tit for tat type of sanctions war. And before we get into everything else that happened thereafter, let's hear how Victoria Nuland pretty much hand-selected who she wanted to lead, and how they removed the leader, Yanukovych, from power and put in their own puppet.
What do you think?
I think we're in play. The Klitschko piece is obviously the complicated electron here, especially the announcement of him as deputy prime minister. And you've seen some of my notes on the troubles in the marriage right now. So we're trying to get a read really fast on where he is on this stuff. But I think your argument to him, which you'll need to make, I think that's the next phone call we want to set up, is exactly the one you made to Yats. And I'm glad you sort of put him on the spot on where he fits in this scenario. And I'm very glad he said what he said in response.
Good. So I don't think Klitsch should go into the government. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you think, in terms of him not going into the government, just let him sort of stay out and do his political homework and stuff. I'm just thinking, in terms of sort of the process moving ahead, we want to keep the moderate Democrats together. The problem is going to be Tony Book and his guys. And, I'm sure that's part of what Yanukovych is calculating on all of this.
I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. He's the guy, what he needs is Klitsch and Tony Book on the outside. He needs to be talking to them 4 times a week, I just think Klitsch going in, he's going to be at that level working for Yatsenyuk, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Okay, good. Well, do you want us to try to set up a call with him? Is the next step?
My understanding from that call, but you tell me, was that the big three were going into their own meeting, and that Yats was going to offer in that context a three-way, 3+1 conversation or 3+2 with you. Is that not how you understood it?
No, I mean, that's what he proposed, but I think just knowing the dynamic that's been with them where Klitschko has been the top dog, he's going to take a while to show up for whatever meeting they've got. He's probably talking to his guys at this point. So I think you reaching out directly to him helps with the personality management among the three, and it gives you also a chance to move fast on all this stuff and put us behind it before they all sit down and he explains why he doesn't like it.
Okay, good. I'm happy. Why don't you reach out to him and see if he wants to talk before or after?
Okay, will do. Thanks.
Okay, I've now written, one more wrinkle for you, Jeff.
Yeah.
I can't remember if I told you this or if I only told Washington this, that when I talked to Jeff Feltman this morning, he had a new name for the UN guy, Robert Seri. Did I write you that this morning?
Yeah, I saw that.
He's now gotten both Seri and Ban Ki-moon to agree that Seri could come in Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
So that would be great, I think, to help glue this thing and have the UN help glue it. And, fuck the EU.
No, exactly. And I think we've got to do something to make it stick together, because you can be pretty sure that if it does start to gain altitude, the Russians will be working behind the scenes to try to torpedo it. And again, the fact that this is out there right now, I'm still trying to figure out in my mind why Yanukovych that. But in the meantime, there's a Party of Regions faction meeting going on right now, and I'm sure there's a lively argument going on in that group at this point. But anyway, we could land jelly side up on this one if we move fast. So let me work on Klitschko, and if you can just keep, I think we want to try to get somebody with an international personality to come out here and help to midwife this thing. And then the other issue is some kind of outreach to Yanukovych, but we probably regroup on that tomorrow as we see how things start to fall into place.
So on that piece, Jeff, when I wrote the note, Sullivan's come back to me, VFR, saying you need Biden, and I said probably tomorrow for an attaboy and to get the deets to stick. So okay. Biden's willing.
Okay, great.
All right, Pasta. Anything to say on that before I continue?
No. I the only thing I really like that I kind of haven't pointed out is if you listen to Victoria Nuland talk on that phone call over there, I think she's also really, you could see how she has a history of doing this, that she's very well trained. No, I think Klitschko's got to be out there, not in the government, talking to him 4 times a week, making sure that you keep all the wheels spinning, all the oil, make sure you keep it greased, nice, well working. Klitschko is now, who's an ex-boxer, is now he's the mayor of Kiev. There's something to think about. So they know where to put their minions in place when they need to put their minions in place. And that's just something you can see. She's an expert at regime change.
Yeah, guys, these are the narrative managers. These are the people that use these political puppets as chess pieces. Notice how they refer to Joe Biden. I mean, this is what they do. So how can you even consider taking what they say verbally, as any sort of truth, just on the outside? Because look at what their inner talks are like. They're choosing who they want in power. They're picking and choosing who they don't, where they want to put them. I mean, it doesn't get any more blatant and obvious than that. Yeah. And again, like Victoria Nuland is an expert on this. This is what they do. It's a lot of PR, a lot of narrative management, a lot of, just putting people in certain spots. It's really not at all to do with anything about the Ukrainian people, about the Russian people. It's not about they don't care about the people. This is just cut and dry. We're going to do this. He's going to look good for this. And that's that. Yeah. And that's it. That's it.
And what about following that phone call? It's like, hey, Nance, tell Paul to get ready. We're going to be able to get him some energy jobs over there. Hunter's already got something set up. We'll get something set up for Nance. Hey, John Kerry, your son can get into the play over here too as well. Hey, Mitt, you can get in the play. And don't worry, Adam Schiff. We'll talk about these things in depth Monday, but those are the phone calls that are going to follow this call as they went in there and they just used Ukraine as a toilet bowl, pissing and shitting all over it, not caring what happened to the citizens, who eventually turned into one of the most poorest states in the region. And as we know, in the Donbass, which you're going to go over, 14,000 deaths. The American elites did not give a damn.
Yeah, so just to continue, literally right after what happens is that this conflict broke out, right? And the two regions in Donbass declared independence from Kiev. So again, they declared independence all the way back in 2014, even before that. But the Ukrainian government responded to the declaration of independence of the Donetsk and the Lugansk People's Republic by saying that these were terrorists. And they were going to launch these anti-terrorist operations against them. And they called in these battalions that were supposedly these volunteer fighters that had direct ties to, of course, neo-Nazis. And they're calling them nationalist backgrounds, but I mean, that's what they were. And they came in and they started fighting with heavy shelling in these two cities and so heavy civilian casualties and losses on both ends. And basically, Kiev and Donbass accused each other of war crimes. And then the Ukrainian government accused Russia of directing aggression, but Russia insisted that their own troops never entered. So that's what happened immediately after. And then what happened is that there was supposed to be the Minsk ceasefire deal, but we know that today that was never respected. So the fighting didn't really ever stop, but it's mostly stopped after they brokered the international accords that they signed in Minsk, Belarus, right? And under the second ceasefire deal between Ukrainian government and the rebels brokered by Russia, France, and Germany in February 2015, Kiev pledged decentralization reform, providing broad autonomy on the eastern regions. The Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe deployed its monitoring team along the line of contact. And so that was supposed to be what Ukraine followed. But they have accused each other, of course, repeatedly of violating the Minsk agreement. Particularly Russia is saying that that's one of the reasons why Putin is going in now. But the reforms were actually never put into place. So it actually never happened. And so they continued calling these people terrorists, and they continued just the same type of from And Russia then said Kiev abandoned the deal altogether, that it was never actually formulated. And throughout this whole thing, right, from 2014 to 2020, you had about at least 13,000 people were killed. And of course, now you're factoring in the 2+ years since then. And that's according to the UN. People were literally telling me that I was faking these numbers.
Yeah. Right.
Like that I was making them up. Like yeah. that where are you getting your information from, Fiorella? You're not validly presenting this. No, that is an accurate number. Fucking look it up. According to the UN, it's at least 13,000 between the year 2014 and 2020. There you have it. Yeah.
And big ups to the MCSC network for, putting people on. We got Slow News Day, peeps in the house upstairs, and they'd have on Vanessa Beeley or Eva Bartlett, talking about these things, showing what's going on in these regions. We pointed this stuff out from the get-go. There are actual, pictures of kids in cellars, from kindergarten classes hiding and stuff from the shelling that took place. And now all of a sudden everybody wants to just put stuff up on their Twitter and say, I stand with Ukraine. And they just pretty much ignored this for 8 years. Sorry. Not happening. Not happening.
Sorry. So after that went on for nearly 8 years. And now, of course, then what happened is that Ukraine and the United States began accusing Moscow of planning an unprovoked military operation, right? And that's going to, in a gigantic occupation, right? They were like, oh, Putin is trying to expand and occupy, blah, blah, blah. And then Russia said that Kiev was planning an attack in the Donbass. And of course, what happened was officials in those two regions pretty much accused the Ukrainian army of launching heavy artillery and, just shelling across the border. And they responded with an evacuation of civilians to Russia and declared the mobilization of military-age men. And Ukraine denied this, and so did the United States. Remember, they said this is a false flag operation. So what happened is NATO and the United States, as this was happening, as there was actual shelling from Kiev on these people, these pro-Russian groups in the Donbass region, the United States, NATO, and the Western media said this is a false flag. This isn't happening. There's no evidence that these people are being shot at. And so what happened is that the people in the region said, leave. If you're of Russian ethnicity, or the ethnic minorities, you should get out of here because this is going to get bad, right? Which is hilarious, because when it's flipped, they're like, the minute Putin was like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to and I'm going to protect these people that are being shot at, they're like, look, see, Putin is being the aggressor. Look what he's doing. Look what he's doing. And now it's all over, plaster all over the mainstream media. And it's the same pictures. It's the same type of people. So, that's what I mean. They manufacture these narratives. Basically that's what's happening.
Some of us think that Putin, operated at a snail's pace. It was 8 freaking years for him to do this shit. And let me just say something, that you can't control these type of kind of militias or sorts with, you want to call them the Ukraine military. No, I mean, they're Azov battalion neo-Nazis. I cannot find it. We played it on a clip years ago, fam, when Zelensky goes to the front line and he's trying to tell these battalions to back off of bombing and shelling the Donbass region, and they're ignoring him. They're like, go scratch. You ain't got shit. You're a comedian. Get out of here. So, you cannot control these militias. We were actually arming, and you know what? Once again, they were doing this at the behest because the Americans empowered them to do it. The Americans, not just the EU, not just the West, the Americans empowered them to do this. Because you got, what's his name? Mr. McCain, who goes over there and lets everybody know they got their back. So now you got these neo-Nazis acting really aggressive because they got the wind in the sails of the Americans pushing them.
Yeah. Lovely for Americans to back neo-Nazis. It's not the first time. So Russia, number 7, of course, declared that the Donbass republics were independent and sovereign states. So that's what Putin declared. And the leadership of the DPR and the LPR asked the Kremlin to recognize them. And then they did. And then they also asked them for aid. And Putin, of course, this is worth reiterating, signed the recognition on that day, citing that Ukraine's inability to implement the Minsk agreements and the continued attacks on the 2 regions of Donetsk and Lugansk were reasons why he was going to do what he was going to do. And he also signed a friendship treaty, which included the provision of military assistance. He called it mutual aid as well. And so then thereby they launched a military operation on Wednesday. And this was because they, in the Donbass republics, asked them to help prepare the, quote, aggression of the Ukrainian troops. And then, of course, he said he described it as genocide and sought the demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine, and that these were going to be precision strikes, and that they were going to end the war, not start the war. Yeah. So that's essentially what happened thus far. So a lot of people have been saying that Putin is attempting to, regain control of Ukraine. But Putin has said multiple times, I don't plan on occupying Ukrainian territories. But he's of course recognizing these 2 regions that have been controlled partly by the Ukrainian forces, and so they're sending all these troops to help them there. And of course, like I said, they're targeted military strikes specifically to certain of the military or the artillery, the weapons. Are there going to be casualties? Have they been casualties? Absolutely. That's what happens in war. And it's unfortunate that we've gotten to this place. We are not saying that all of the people in Kiev are neo-Nazis, but the people controlling this and that manufactured this aggression are the ones that are that are neo-Nazis.
Absolutely, fam. That's it. Like, the people aren't. but I mean, the majority of the people aren't, and there are that exist, citizens there as well, of course, that support Azov Battalion. That's where they recruited from and everything. But, the majority of people, I would probably say, and I haven't gone there yet to witness it myself, in the Ukraine are not neo-Nazis. However, it's like Mark Sloboda said on the show before, they have penetrated the cabinet. They have penetrated every single part of the military, police force, the Congress, everything. So that is what Putin said he was going to do. I thought he was going to go into the region, send the peacekeepers there, and that would be the end of it. Like, they're not going to shell now because if they kill a Russian troop, forget about it. But I guess they didn't want to slow down or stop. So Putin had to say, okay, let me show you what it's going to be like. Boom, boom, boom. Targets all over the place. But he's not going to occupy. He is going to denazify. He is going to demilitarize. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the things that were said. How Americans are so hypocritical. How we let other countries justify bombing because they don't want these countries to get nuclear weapons. But, okay, over here, Putin can't have the same luxury. He's not allowed to do that. On his border, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, it's on the border. On the border. And by the way, let's not forget that the United States and NATO, specifically NATO, have been sending military there for months now, and they've been running little drills like on the border. So let's not pretend that didn't happen either, because that absolutely happened. So Russia's foreign minister came out and she was talking about specifically this isn't being portrayed the way that it should be portrayed, that they're ending a war, not starting it. And again, I have to reiterate that because so many people say the opposite. Oh, look what Putin's doing. He's starting this war. He's unleashing all this aggression. There is no justification for what he's doing. But he said the main objective is to stop the escalation of the war that's been going on for 8 years and to stop the war. That is what is coming out of Moscow. And Zakharova, which is the foreign ministry, said she said Russia did not commit any aggression of any kind. This does not start yesterday. There's a sea of blood that's appeared over the past 8 years. And of course, she referred to the same conflict that we were just talking about. She goes on to say, if Ukraine wanted peace, why did they get all these weapons from all over the world? It's specifically from the United States and their NATO-backed allies. And it was clear that these were offensive weapons. Who are they fighting? Their own people in southeast Ukraine, and spoke often about seizing Crimea. The peninsula voted to rejoin Russia in March of 2014. This is what we just went over. And we're still talking about seizing Crimea, right? And they have never recognized that and called it an annexation. And so she also noted that top Ukrainian officials have brought up, this is true, they've publicly brought up the idea of obtaining nuclear weapons from, you guessed it, from the West, right? And pointing out that and using that to sort of threaten Russia. So how can they blatantly say that Putin was not in his right mind to do this? I mean, like Costa just said, people are saying maybe he acted a little bit late. This should have happened before. But all of a sudden, the moment he pushes back is when people start caring.
Yep. He got a lot of criticism from Russian citizens in Russia for not acting quickly. Yeah. And we showed earlier, even the ex-president was like, Putin, get in there, do something, right? They're going to get slaughtered. And, I put this tweet up the other day, fam, and this is something, I was just trying to make sure that I, had all the my bases covered. Let me put it up real quick. And it really just talks about the hypocrisy, right? Here it is. Something not being talked about in the Western media. Millions of Americans support Israel's bombing of Iranian proxies in Syria and throughout the region because Iran can't attain nuclear weapons. But Zelensky just recently said that Ukraine will pursue nuclear weapons. And you think Putin's just going to sit still and go, let me have more nuclear weapons on my border? It's okay. He's already pissed off about the nuclear weapons all in the Baltic states right there, whatnot. He's sending a message. No mas, no more. Yeah, you're not doing it.
He's standing up to the bully. Yeah. And not only the hypocrisy with that, but the hypocrisy of suddenly caring about Ukrainian citizens while simultaneously having backed neo-Nazis and having, perpetuated this conflict while simultaneously not caring about the bombing of Somalia, while simultaneously not caring about the occupation of Palestine. We showed it the other day that these Israeli people are standing in solidarity with occupied Ukrainians simultaneously occupying Palestine. There's so much hypocrisy. Syria consistently, Damascus getting bombed multiple times this week. Nobody fucking talking about it. Damascus getting bombed by Israel. I mean, this is just, where is the solidarity with these people? I guess, you know, these Americans are starting to be like, oh, I'm so scared. I'm so scared. Think about how these fucking people that we literally bomb every single freaking day, or our allies bomb with our weapons and our funding every single day, feel when they hear bomb after bomb, shelling after shelling. Think about what these people in the Donbass have been going through for the last 8 years. That didn't matter until mainstream media made these people suddenly clutch their pearls about what's happening in Ukraine. And it's the epitome of hypocrisy.
And how many times did Netanyahu go, Iran will never be able to obtain the bomb. We will not let it happen. Therefore, we are bombing Hezbollah points inside of Syria.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Come on. And now all of a sudden, like, Zelensky's going to talk about nuclear weapons and you don't want Putin to do a thing. Shut up. Just shut up.
Before we're going to go into it a little bit deeper on the next topic, but I just got to reiterate, it's not just about the division in the Donbass. It's about the armed groups being neo-Nazis. And it's not just the Azov Battalion. There are others that are there, but they're all ultra-nationalist, fascists, like band-right fascists, right? And so the Western media, and this is the foreign minister again, she points out the Western media was so concerned over human rights in places like South Sudan and Myanmar that kept silent on this, ignoring that more than 13,000 people have died in the Donbass, many of them civilians, while Russia provided them with humanitarian aid. Kiev besieged them by cutting off trade, finance, and even utilities. Okay. And she noted that the water canals towards Crimea are now once again operational after Ukraine criminally shut them off years ago. And there are videos, I didn't put them in there, but you can see the water once again flowing. This is a positive thing coming back from coming out of this unfortunate event that we're of course the United States government is 100,000%, you know, in fault of too. And the water is flowing once again because they shut it off. So again, this is the narrative that they're pushing is just the complete opposite of what's actually happening. And I just have a video summary of what's happened thus far, and then we'll continue.
Around 6 a.m. Moscow time, Vladimir Putin announces military operation based on requests from Donetsk and Lugansk republics.
With accordance to the Article 51 in the 7th chapter of the UN Charter with the sanction of the Federation Council, and according to the Friendship and Mutual Help treaties with Donetsk and Lugansk republics, I have decided to conduct a special military operation. The goal is to protect the people who for 8 years suffer bullying and genocide from the Kiev regime. And for this we aim for the demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine. We'll bring to the court those who committed multiple sanguinary crimes against civilians, including Russian citizens. We do not plan to occupy Ukrainian territories.
Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky declares martial law. Air raid sirens heard in Kiev. Some Russian regions on the border with Ukraine cancel school or shift to distance learning. Russian Defense Ministry says Ukraine air defenses suppressed. Number of airports in southern Russia suspend flights.
The soldiers of the border service of Ukraine didn't put up any resistance to the Russian units.
Russia says Ukraine shelled a Russian border checkpoint in the Kursk region. Front lines in Lugansk right now. Shelling, rocket artillery and blasts are incessant.
Кратко о том, что сейчас происходит. Возможно, вы сейчас слышите взрывы реактивной артиллерии. Это с севера, северо-запада.
Belarus leader claims his army not taking part in military operation. Explosives heard in the Kharkiv region.
The units of the armed forces of Ukraine continue shelling the peaceful cities of Donbass. There are casualties among the civilian population of the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics. the armed forces of the Russian Federation do not carry out any missile, air or artillery strikes on the cities of Ukraine. The high-precision weapons of the Russian armed forces disable only military infrastructure, air defense facilities, military airfields, and aviation of the armed forces of Ukraine.
People reportedly flee Kiev. Lugansk Republic claims Ukraine used rocket artillery for the first time since February 2015. 12:30 p.m. Moscow time. Ukraine cuts diplomatic ties with Russia. Zelensky submits bill on general mobilization to Ukraine's parliament. 1 p.m. Moscow time. Ukrainian border guards left their posts at Russia-Ukraine border, according to Russia's Federal Security Service.
RT should just be paying us right.
Stay with RT for more updates.
We have hot mics.
Just because we're going over pretty much everything.
Fam, how long do you think until RT is shut down on YouTube?
They're already, so they were already being shut down. I don't even think I had.
That was the website. That was the website, right?
Yeah, but you could still access it through DuckDuckGo, but you couldn't and anonymous. Did you see that? There are anonymous groups trying to also shut them down, which is fucking hilarious. Like how co-opted could we freaking be right now? I mean, it's just a joke at this point. You guys got the gist of that. I'm not going to go over that. I mean, it's pretty much everything that we talked about. Hold on, let me see. So I put this on my stream yesterday, and thank you all for watching my rant. But I was really pissed, and I still am, and I still have so many more rants to give because I feel people have lost their minds. So I just wanted to reiterate one point here, that NATO, is not offering military aid to Ukraine. In spite of dangling those carrots, in spite of Ukraine feeling like, oh yeah, we have NATO. NATO isn't going to stick out their neck for them because, of course, duh. Yeah. This is what was going to happen. A lot of people talk about Zelensky, and we're going to go over that a little bit. But Zelensky's Jewish, so therefore there's no Nazis. No, Zelensky is pretty much being tokenized. He's the guy. He can't go against the Ukrainian government because then everything will fall apart. They'll turn on him, and it'll be a mess. But also the alt-right, or I would say the neo-Nazi specifically forces there are more anti-Russian and anti-ethnic minority than they are anti-Jew. Not to mention the fact that this has happened multiple times where there are Jewish, there have been Jewish factions that have cooperated with Nazis. You could go back to World War II to look at that.
Exactly.
But the Donetsk and the Luhansk region, again, they asked them for help. And let's talk about China and Venezuela, because China is a very, right now there's so much is China, China went to the World Economic Forum. China's obviously playing ball with Klaus Schwab and these people, but also China is also going to come to the defense of Russia. They took the first step in providing assistance to Russia. They're not calling this an invasion either. And what they did was they lifted all the wheat import restrictions on Russia amid the Ukraine crisis, because when this happens, this is the United States imposing sanctions. It's a direct attack on Russia's economy, and they are fully open to Russian imports. They announced that in the latest sign of their strengthening bilateral ties as the Ukrainian crisis is unfolding before a global audience, and in the wake of fresh sanctions being imposed on Moscow. The announcement by China's General Administration of Customs was made public on Thursday, hours after Russian troops launched a wide-ranging attack on Ukraine. However, the agreement was part of a package deal made during the Russian Putin's visit to Beijing earlier this month, so they were going to do that anyway. But it's important because China, again, is an increasing superpower that, and I believe what's happening now is, of course, you can see the shift towards a multilateralism instead of, this unilateralism where the United States is a bully and NATO and they get to dictate what's happening. I don't think that's going to happen much longer because of potencies like China. Now you have Venezuela coming in, and a lot of the other more socialist nations recognizing and standing in solidarity with right-wing oligarch Vladimir Putin. Nicaragua, you had Syria recognizing the two republics, you had Cuba, Venezuela. And of course, President Nicolas Maduro said, our unrestricted support to the Republic of Russia. President Vladimir Putin, you have the support of my country. And he also said, President Vladimir Putin has established parameters to keep diplomacy and dialogue, but that is not what the extreme right in the region want. So obviously taking a stance, let's get, more continued aggression on Venezuela and any of these nations in the global south that are standing by Russia. Nicaragua is one of them, hardcore, standing with Putin. Yeah. And anything to say on that?
Yeah, well, I just think, ladies and gentlemen, have to understand what's going on. Like, Putin did his move. He played his part, and he turned over his shoulder, and China was standing behind him with his arms closed, and Iran was there, and Venezuela and Nicaragua, they had their back. Zelensky, he was, propped up and pushed by the Americans. He got all chest. He looked over his shoulder, and nobody was there. United States had run out of the room like, we're not sending troops. NATO's not sending troops. From what I understand, Georgia, is kind of like now kind of turned their back. They got the same kind of huffing and puffing, like, don't worry, man, start this fight. We got your back. And when they turn around and say, you got my back, ain't nobody home. And from what I just saw recently is that Zelensky is going to be looking to sit down with Putin and kind of agree to a ceasefire, because there's no way that, Ukraine can withstand the Russian Federation's army and air force and everything, missiles coming out of the Black Sea, Tomahawks to just, paralyze them. They can't keep up for this, for that long. And I think there should be a Key and Peele skit made about, Zelensky turning around and nobody there, because it is almost hysterical that it's happening.
It is hysterical. And it's also, we're not trying to make light of war, but it is, but you never negotiate with terrorists. And in this case,
you said it.
who it really is a terrorist in this case. Caleb has been on fire lately. He has been on the right side of this issue. I 100% agree with his takes on this. He's also very much deep into the subject, the historical context of this. He's been one of the few people talking about it. And he said Russia is ending 8 years of terrorism against the people of Donetsk and Luhansk, whereas the mainstream media's empathy for the 14,000 plus who Kiev has killed since the NATO coup in 2018. I think he meant 2014. But why, or maybe he meant something else. But why is there only outrage now as Russia protects them? So you guys can see the pictures of the dead people. Nobody talks about this, right? Nobody's been talking about this. Yeah. And of course, this person, Nina Byzantina, put the Odessa massacre on the trade union building, May 2014, in which dozens died in the flames at the hands of Ukrainian radicals. The perpetrators have been walking around free for almost 8 years. Nobody talks about that. There's some pictures there you guys can see as to what happened. Most people don't even know that these things happened. Now, there was a little bit of an update, but pretty much we can play it quickly. I might stop it early. It's just an update as to what's happened as of this morning, because, Russia time, US time, there's been a few updates, but pretty much what Post said, they're going to try to sit down and broker a deal.
Of course they are. They got no choice. Get their ass spanked.
Day 2 of Russia's special operation. Here's what's happened so far. People across several Ukrainian cities find shelter in the metro. Some stay there overnight. Unauthorized anti-war protests stage across Russia. The Ukrainian president says his country's been left alone.
I asked them, are you with us? They answered that they are with us, but they don't want to take us into the alliance. I've asked 27 leaders of Europe if Ukraine will be in NATO. I've asked them directly, all are afraid and did not respond. We are not afraid of Russia. We are not afraid to talk with Russia, talk about everything. Security guarantees for our country and a neutral status. But we are not in NATO now. What security guarantees will we have? Which countries will give them?
Some reports claim Kiev shot down a Russian cruise missile above the city. Other reports suggest it was a plane. The debris hit a residential area. 8 people reportedly injured, 150 evacuated.
So approximately in 4 or 4:15, my mother screaming, wake up, wake up. I'm waking, all in the dust, screaming, alarmed, from the cars. I don't even know. Maybe this is the shelter. Maybe this is the rocket launcher. They're all in a panic and smoke from the fire. We take off our bags and live in the house.
Russia says it's not carrying out missile strikes on Ukraine cities. Ukrainian president orders general mobilization. The hacker group Anonymous declares cyber war against the Russian government. DDoS attacks on RT websites. Russia takes control of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant area. Russian forces reach agreement on joint security with Ukrainian battalion protecting the nuclear power plant. The Donetsk Republic says Ukrainian army shelling hit a local school, killing 2 teachers. Russian top diplomat says Russia's not planning to occupy Ukraine.
Nobody is going to attack the Ukrainian people. No one is going to treat Ukrainian servicemen in a degrading manner. It is about not allowing neo-Nazis and those who promote genocidal methods to rule in this country. Because now Ukraine is under 2 mechanisms of external control, the West, led by the United States, and neo-Nazis.
Putin says he's ready to send delegation to Belarus for talks with Ukraine.
I think the last sentence surmised it pretty well. That there's a portion now being led by the West and neo-Nazis. This is really what they're fighting, and you have an unbelievable amount of just completely just stupid people and people that are unfortunately misinformed, that have lost their mind, or that are just not paying attention, being led to support neo-Nazis and to support the empire and to support warmongers and war, and just they framed it in a way where they can feel virtuous, but it's really, that's at the end of the day what you're supporting. And so that was a little quick update. And as Pasta said, pretty much Vladimir Putin is prepared to send a delegation to Minsk for negotiations on Ukraine's neutrality as Russia continues its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Supposedly, this is what the Kremlin said on Friday. But Russia's conditions, however, effectively amount to Ukraine's surrender. This is what somebody said. This is Max Sedon who said that. And then Rob Lee is an analyst. And he said the problem is that the Minsk agreement was never implemented, so Russia would require stronger mechanisms to ensure Ukrainian compliance, which could include permanent Russian military bases in Ukraine or a short, medium-term military occupation as part of the country. Because how are you going to trust that they're going to follow through this time, right? So it's not going to be as simple as, okay, we made this agreement. We need some sort of collateral to know that you're going to follow through this time, that you're not going to continue bombing these people, that you're not going to continue trying to impose neo-Nazis all over the government, et cetera. Yeah.
And people are going to point to that and go, he wants to have bases, I told you, in the Ukraine. How many bases we got in Japan after World War II? Like,
exactly,
they're all over the place, you know what I'm saying? And you know, it is kind of crazy because they should surrender. There's nowhere to go from here. I mean, I think the Russian defense minister, Lavrov, said the other day, we're done. We've concluded our campaign for the night. You know what I'm saying? And then you see that picture of them hiding in, you know, in the sub, and that's how strong they are. And they're hiding in the subway, people. And that's what you're going to see people play over and over again. Oh my God, look what Putin's doing to their people and stuff. But they are that much stronger where they can. That's it for tonight. See you tomorrow. Go to bed. Sleep on it. Think about it, Zelensky. Give us an answer what you want in the morning. I mean, that's the power that Russia has behind this. And, you know, I also want to mention that, you know, when you showed the clip of Zelensky talking about nobody's there to help us, whatnot, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, Bush Sr. said this in a conversation. Slow News, they did a show with McGovern, and I think they stopped in the middle of a vigil to talk about it. And it's where it was planted in my brain, because a lot of people in his own administration were going, whoa, what the hell did you say? You just said that Georgia and Ukraine are going to be part of NATO. Like, who did you talk with this about, whatnot? It's the same broken promises. The same thing that happened with Georgia. That's the same thing happening with Zelensky. You know, they turned around and it was like nobody's there to help them out.
Exactly, like what you, exactly what we just said. And Dan Cohen summarized it pretty well. These people don't care. These people don't care about Ukrainians. They don't care about Russians. He said, when I say the Ukrainian people are cannon fodder, for the West crusade against Russia. This is exactly what I mean. None of these civilians receiving weapons stand a chance in combat against Russian soldiers, but their deaths will make for CNN and New York Times headlines very grim. So let's just play a video. It's just a video of residents ready for a fight in Kiev's Obolon suburb, and they're going to, face Ukrainian forces, and yeah.
На оболоне, блядь, ебать, вся оболонь, блядь, все мужчины, блядь, собираются, блядь, посмотрите, как все будет. Приходите, мы вас будем всех встречать. Даже без документов разжили. Приходи, защищай свое государство Украины. Слава.
Yeah, it's so sad. It is sad because these people are being used for the US's interest. And then the last thing I really quickly want to point out is Vanessa Beeley has a great thread. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. She pretty much summarizes everything that we just talked about. I'm not going to go through it because it's the same thing we've just talked about. But she does talk about something that we're going to talk about on Monday, which is the bioweapons experimentation on Ukrainian troops and the biolabs in Ukraine. That's something to really think about. We're going to be touching on that. And also how NATO was prepping to aid neo-Nazis to develop nuclear weapons, which is NATO. Let me repeat that for you. NATO was prepping to aid neo-Nazi regimes to develop nuclear weapons. Just okay. So again, guys, to say that Putin is, doesn't have a reason to do what he did as far as these targeted attacks, and there isn't an attempt to end this war, end this conflict, is entirely false. So again, read this thread. It's really informative and great. And she's got a lot of videos and a lot of links in there. Check it out. Vanessa does great work. I love the work she does. And yeah, that's it. That's for that section, fam. I know it was hefty, but I think a lot of people really needed that refresher.
Thank you to the 145 people hanging out on Rokfin and the 300 plus on the YouTubes. Who knows how long? I think it was said on Twitter today that they're going to start thinking about taking down Ukrainian disinformation. Yeah. So it's only a matter of time till YouTube follows suit, and we'll be taken down off there. But we will be over here at Rokfin, so it's a good chance for y'all on YouTube who are not like watching dual shows or have us on dual shows that show that love, like a lot of people do, like Jilly Love. Go on over to Rokfin and join. Hang on out, please. That's where we get our permission to speak about whatever we want, our free speech. We don't need permission over there. We just can tell the truth. So thank you so much. And thank you for everybody left these super rays. Let's get into it. I already mentioned Trey Wright. Trey, we love you. Thomas Hutchinson, thank you for the super ray contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. And Taro Man also left a super ray contribution. Fam, don't roll your eyes. It is always appreciated on the couch. Glory Jones in the house and in the chat. Orale, fam. Fuck the imperialists, also from AFRICOM, bombed Somalia while everyone was tuning into the neocon. Yeah. Also, a lot of stuff happened with the boop that we haven't been talking about.
No, don't worry, we'll catch up.
Virgil Fitzgerald, Fee, you said the other day that you need to expand to young viewers. When I look at how fast channels like Jimmy Dore, Greenwald, Matt Orfalia grew on Rumble, I am convinced that it would be your best option to reach the people. I know it's how to take the military industrial complex, big tech, big pharma, the security state, the fascist oligarchy, and rip them apart. Have a good one, fam.
Thank you, fam.
How do you say this name? Chakaton? Kehakaton? Chakaton? No. Whatever. Thank you for the super A contribution, CC. It is always appreciated on the couch. Rocky D. What is the Russia invaded on 2014 bullshit? Exactly. It was a mini invasion. It was Putin goes, I'm just going to use one patrol, let them go in, and we'll see how they do. 8 years later, the real invasion comes. Deborah Wilson. Thank you so much for the generosity. That is amazing, Deborah. Since you left such a generous contribution, I'm going to give you the best always appreciated on the couch. Deborah Wilson, thank you very much for the super rate contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch.
Oh,
thank you, Deborah Wilson.
I don't need both Glory Jones and Pasta Georgiula.
Glory Jones is down in the city.
Oh, my God. I can hear her, Pasta. I can hear her. Jesus Christ. Okay.
Dave Carlton, thank you for the super rage contribution. Thanks and peace. We love you, Dave Carlton. El Brillante, thank you for the super rage contribution, fam. This is number 5. It is always appreciated on the couch. Arthur Carter, I support the Convo Couch. Amazing as always. So are you, Aram. Thank you so much, Aram, for the generous super rage contribution. And this is good because we're gonna have to go to friggin' Russia and the Ukraine and the Donbass because Sean Penn's there doing a documentary.
Pasta Jardula's got to be there doing.
Hell yeah, we got to counteract the narrative.
Yeah.
May the coinage under the cushions of the Convo Couch be plenty. Of the handful of principled leftist independents, Convo Couch is the best. Thank you so much, Aram. Thank you, Jackie Pagao. Hey, fam.
Jackie.
Thanks for all you do. And Jean Zybach with number 6. Thank you for the super big contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch.
Oh, God. How much coffee did you have today? Jesus
and also
Christ.
Universal Earthling. Appreciate y'all. Universal Earthling, we appreciate you guys on the YouTube. There's over 300 of you guys today. Thank you so much. It's a Friday. You could be doing whatever you want on a fun day, but you choose to hang here with us, and we do appreciate that. Really, we do. Get on over to the Rokfin. Sign up.
I still need to do OnlyFans. I still need to do an OnlyFans stream.
Okay, listen, can we please save that? Stop. Do not encourage over there, you two. We have studio etiquette over here, fam. I gotcha.
Okay.
They're supporting you.
Of course they are. They're OnlyFans. Shout out to the OnlyFans. All right. So let's get through this section where we get to make fun of all these people.
Okay.
We're trying to get serious here, guys. Where we make fun of all these people, right, for their hypocrisy, because they're constantly calling us right wingers, neo like Nazis. They're called not even neo Nazis. They call us straight up Nazis. Bread and Round Alliance, pasta, all that shit. But these people on the left, and we're gonna call them out, are supporting the neo-Nazi and the State Department narrative, which I mean, hand in hand right there, like this. So a lot of people, and the reason I'm going this like step 1 is because a lot of people were saying, how do you know these people are neo-Nazis? I've never heard of that. What are you talking about? I don't know if it's because they really don't know or because they're whatever, but like, I'm going to do this just this once. These people are actually neo-Nazis. You even a milquetoast definition of the Azov Battalion on Wikipedia literally says right-wing extremists and neo-Nazi Ukraine National Guard unit based in Mariupol in the Azov Sea coastal region. Okay, guys, neo-Nazis, and you can see this from daily veracity.com. The militia, which is explicitly neo-Nazi, is being used by the West as a proxy face against Russia as US and NATO seek to expand their military might throughout the region, which this is literally what this is about. You can see their emblem. If you flip it to the other side, it's a fucking Nazi sign. In 2015, the US withheld open support of the Azov Battalion. Just 1 year later, in 2016, the Pentagon urged Congress to remove the ban on funding of the neo-Nazi group. This is something we didn't even talk about, but we talked about before. Initially, in 2015, they were like, no, we removed the ban, and then they put it silently back. They put a ban, and then they removed it right back out quietly. And so that's that. You can see a picture right there. Okay, so and they're not the only ones. There are other less popular groups that are there, but you can see their flags and there. So do not fucking tell me that these people are not neo-Nazis. And the reason I'm so fervent about this is because I actually oppose real Nazis, real neo-Nazis. I don't call a Trump supporter or a Proud Boy Fed guy a fucking Nazi every 5 seconds. Okay, I don't have to do that. I actually focus on the real people with power, with actual guns that are literally killing people. And the State Department, of course, which has the real fascists in power. As well as the surveillance state.
Yeah. I just think this would be a good time, and I'm only going to say this much, for people to go look up the definition of bando right. Just go do that, and then you'll understand what's going on over here. So.
Okay. And again, I want to reiterate that too. Not everybody in Ukraine is a neo-Nazi, right? But a lot of people are misinformed, and this whole thing is being led by this specific group, which is what the counter movement is trying to crush. specifically, as well as, of course, the U.S. Western NATO influence. Now, even going back to what happened before, the CIA actually trained these Ukrainian paramilitaries. And there was this article released on Yahoo News last month by Zach Dorfman. And the article basically just talked about how the CIA is overseeing a secret intensive training program in the U.S. for elite Ukrainian special operations forces and other intelligence personnel, according to 5 former intelligence and national security officials familiar with the initiative. So there you go. And the CIA trained forces, of course, they said are going to play a role. They are playing a role now. And this is, of course, run by paramilitaries working for the CIA's ground branch, which is now known as the Ground Department, which was established during the Obama administration after Russia's invasion and annexation of Crimea in 2014. And this is, of course, framed this way. And of course, it expanded under the Trump administration, and the Biden administration is augmented to it. So again, fam, what do we always say? New boss, same as the old boss. It doesn't matter. The foreign policy continued to make this a reality. And
absolutely,
by 2015, of course, this of course was expanded to the anti-Russia effort. And the way they trained them, the training included, of course, firearms, camouflage techniques, land navigation, tactics like cover and move intelligence in other areas. And this is according to these literal CIA officials. Now, this is the next part, fam, is for my Antifa people, my Tinas and my status quo people who focus so much on these idiot, right-wing culture war morons that are like, saying hateful things about BLM, which, I mean, if you want to oppose that, sure. But if you're going to make it the brunt of your journalism while ignoring actual fascism and actually supporting actual fascism going on in foreign policy-wise, then I'm not going to take you seriously. So a 2018 FBI affidavit asserted that the Azov Battalion is believed to have participated in training and radicalizing the United States-based white supremacy organizations, including members of the white supremacist Rise Above movement, prosecuted for planned assaults on counter-protesters at far-right events, including the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally that Joe Biden later co-opted as a rationale for his presidential campaign. Okay? And so it's just hilarious because the Biden administration has talked about their war on domestic terror, these domestic violent extremists, naming the Proud Boys and even anybody that was remotely anti-establishment as a domestic violent extremist, yet simultaneously the United States is quietly providing cover and training for these far-right neo-Nazi types on the global scale, right? I don't know if you have anything else to say about that, possibly. That's just like the gist of what I mean. It's just.
Well, I mean, it's just that, it's like we said with Mark the other day, there's a big difference between, a right winger in the United States who's going to really, say some stupid stuff and, constantly play Born to be an American, because at least I know I'm free.
Proud
I'm
to be
free.
an American.
They might, proud to be. That might really bother you and piss you off and crazy. But, we're talking about the funding of these right-wing groups over here in Ukraine. Yeah. And yes, just like the CIA funded and trained the Mujahideen and ISIS and Al-Qaeda factions, they did the same thing with the Ukrainians over here. There's a big difference between, that particular right-winger in the United States that everybody likes to focus on, the oh my God left, make it seem like these people are the biggest threat to the world when they just think differently half the time, as compared to like a right-winger from, what do you call it? A paramilitary group that will cut your head off. You know what I'm saying? Actual death squads in these different places. So yeah, I'm glad you did bring this up, whatnot, because, once again, they were trained and funded, and we'll train and fund the sickest group as long as they fight for American interest. We don't give a damn.
And I never want to see, again, I have to repeat this. I never want to see these fucking people who call us all these names and say, we're Brad Brown and all this stuff, ever talk about Nazis ever again, while they're supporting actual paramilitary Nazis in Ukraine. I never want to hear that. Their comments at us do not have any sort of weight. Not that they ever did, but especially now, because they're okaying this whole situation. And not only that, they're marching with their little flags and they're putting Ukrainian flags on their Twitter bio while simultaneously promoting this. I mean, it's fucking laughable.
Yeah. And something, as more information comes out and people are kind of like, wow, holy shit. The one thing they'll see too as well is at one point, Obama didn't want to send them weapons and whatnot. You know who did it in our place instead of them? Can you remember we did a story on this like 3 years ago, fam? Because we've been talking about the neo-Nazis in the Ukraine for a long time. It was Israel. Remember, Israel sent over weapons to the Ukraine to actual fund neo-Nazis. That was the irony of the situation, the craziness in the Ukraine. So when some of those progressives pick up that information, go ahead and use that one to go. You know what I'm saying? When you're out there, when you fucking wake up and find out and you smell the coffee and realize what's going on.
So, our favorite warmonger in chief, you can't fool me. You can fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice.
Can't fool me again.
Exactly. He said Russia's attack on Ukraine constitutes the gravest security crisis on the European continent since World War II. Where are the shoes? Somebody throw a shoe at Pasta. I joined the international community in condemning Vladimir Putin's unprovoked and unjustified invasion of Ukraine. Okay, we cannot tolerate the authoritarian bullying. Why are you going to trust anything coming out of the mouth of this fucking guy who got us into the largest,
he hates
the most
Trump.
war
That's
in Iraq?
why.
Guys, do you realize who you're standing with, Abby Martin? You realize who you're standing with, Mike Preisner? I'm not going to call them by Frank's names because that's just Frank is vicious. And so Obama, of course, I'm not going to read his whole thing. You guys can see it for yourself. But I mean, he says, let's see, blah blah blah. He says the consequences of Russia's reckless actions extend beyond Ukraine's borders. This illegal invasion in the heart of Europe also threatens the foundation of the international order and security. I mean, the same fucking bullshit, this fucking warmonger who took us from 2 to 7 wars. I mean, this fucking warmonger who is responsible, who under his foreign policy, literally Hillary Clinton overthrew democratically elected regimes. Democratically elected governments, I should say. And I mean, of course, he's talking about sanctions and he said that's a price we should be willing to pay to take a stand on the side of freedom.
Yeah.
What freedom? What freedom as you're persecuting journalists like Julian Assange for exposing these war crimes, okay? And WikiLeaks has tons of information on this too, by the way. And it's just crazy to me that these people do not see who they're standing with, right? And I expect this from the Obamas. I expect these from the Trumps and not even the Trumps, because Trump said something positive about Putin. Now Putin is a right winger and a Trumper. So if you support Putin, you're also a right winger and a Trumper.
Can I read this one?
The narrative. Yeah, go ahead, please.
The U.S. and our allies must impose severe sanctions on Vladimir Putin and his fellow oligarchs. At a time when thousands may die as a result of his war, Putin, one of the richest people in the world, should not be allowed to enjoy the billions he stole from the Russian people. Who the fuck wrote that for you? Who the hell? The last part is like, all right, you were already full of shit. Somebody's writing this for you. But really now, Bernie, you got this where he stole billions of people from the Russian people. Billions. The Panama Papers. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah, there was a lot of other people that you say are your friend.
Regardless, even if Putin was the biggest piece of shit in the world, regardless, that has nothing to do with the thing at hand. Right. And this is what they do. They say, look, Putin is an oligarch. He's a right winger. He's this. This is what they used to get these progressive and these leftists to say, well, I'm a communist and I have my allegiance to my cult of PSL. Therefore, I can't at all say anything positive about Putin. So Putin, therefore, I must stand with neo-Nazis in Ukraine. They're like, I don't know what to do. It's like that meme where they don't know which button to push. They're like sweating. It's fucking ridiculous. And, I said as much to Bernie. I called him a warmonger, an imperialist. I said, I regret ever standing by you. People got mad that I said that. Like, if you're still supporting Bernie Sanders right now, you're a cuck too. Because, at this point, I don't know how you're still supporting Bernie Sanders. I mean, he is regurgitating the same exact talking points as Barack Hussein Obama, the same exact talking points as George W. Bush, the same exact talking points as the neocons in Congress that he supposedly goes to war every fucking day in the Senate. The same exact talking points, guys.
He still cares about the inequality. He still wants to get people healthcare, fam. So it's different. It's a different rhetoric. It's a kinder, nicer, softer imperialist. And I think we should point that out and at least recognize that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's soft because he's saying, the United States and our allies must impose severe sanctions on Vladimir Putin and his fellow oligarchs. Thousands may die as a result of this war, blah, blah, blah. It's just ridiculous. Like, what? So your sanctions are an act of war. They're an act of siege war, as Pasta pointed out earlier in the stream. This is Bernie Sanders, your most progressive leftist member of the Senate, okaying, and not only okaying, asking, demanding that you, his cult followers, stand in line and support him on imposing these sanctions. This is what the progressive movement is. This is what the left is. I want no part of that fucking shit. I want no part of that. They're imperialists. And, one of our good friends from, she lives here. Well, she's from here, but she lives abroad. And she was with us throughout Nicaragua, which is like, this is more blatant than ever. The United States left is just a bunch of imperialists. It is disgusting. And we're going to go over all of
Bernie Sanders is no Mike Gravel. You know what I'm saying? You know what Mike Gravel would be saying? You know what's worse than soldiers dying in vain? More soldiers dying in vain. I say we just plain get out.
It's fucking disgusting. And I don't even waste my time with him anymore because I feel like he's so irrelevant, but I'm glad he's getting ratioed and getting just attacked numerously. And of course, now I'm going to go on to the people that
oh no, fam,
have attacked, have really just lost.
We're going to get it on the tweeters.
We are going to get it on the tweeters. And by the way, Abby Martin blocked me. Empire Fires blocked me. Mike Kreisner blocked me. I don't know why. All I did was, I don't know. What did I do? If Franco is the one that really went after them. But okay. So Abby Martin said, Putin just threw a match into a tinderbox. Horrific criminal behavior, no matter what precipitated this. We must push for de-escalation, not war. Solidarity with the Ukrainian people and the anti-war movement in Russia. And then she goes on to say something else that I think got cut off. But or maybe she.
You could have seen this coming, though. She was awful with Crimea, so.
Yeah, she
got it so wrong on Crimea. You could expect this. It was like.
But you guys have been seeing this shift, right? You've been seeing this shift with some of these people. Either they want jobs or they want to keep a certain part of the audience or brand, as one of the people that you're with over there constantly says. And so, I mean, this is the take that I'm having a problem with, right? The two siding, the both siding, the fence sitting. Fuck the fence sitting anymore. This is a very clear-cut situation. The United States government, NATO, back neo-Nazis, and this is what led to the situation. Putin's response is I mean, I would have responded even more aggressively, perhaps. I mean, this is I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, a tinderbox. Do you see the drama in that? A tinderbox. And yes, we should push for de-escalation, not war. Who is escalating this? Who are you protesting? If you're protesting Russia, you're protesting the wrong people. Because first of all, Russia isn't your country. Your country is the United States of America and the State Department and these intelligence agencies that have been training these neo-Nazis. Okay, so if you're not talking about all that and you're just coming in with this whole bullshit right now, all of a sudden, you're not only doing your audience a disservice, you're being completely dishonest as to really what this is about here. Okay.
A Twitter attack from Robbie Martin in T-minus 5 minutes and 14 seconds. There you go.
Okay, so and the next one, of course, Pasta, I'll let you read it if you want.
Which one? Oh, well, I was
You
reaching.
put it in there, yeah.
I didn't put this one in. Somebody else put it in there.
You quote tweeted it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but you didn't put my quote tweet in there.
I forgot. I'm sorry.
It's okay, but you can condemn. We talked about this earlier. This is kind of like the position now of the progressives where they're planting their flags of you can condemn Putin's invasion and condemn the U.S. arming of the neo-Nazis in Ukraine. You should try it. Like both sides, fence sitting, it's bullshit. Yeah, if you don't know what's going on, then it's good. So I put down, I'm going to read it so people can hear it. So you're condemning Putin for bombing neo-fascist Banderite Nazis who shelled ethnic-speaking Russians in the Donbass region for the past 8 years because the Western-backed regime empowered them to do so? Okay.
Exactly.
Hashtag 2014.
That was such a good tweet. Yeah. Okay. I mean, why are you're condemning Putin for doing that? Like you might want to condemn him for other things. I don't know, maybe, but this whole both siding thing, like it's just like, it just shows me that you don't know what you're talking about. Essentially, either you don't know what you're talking about or you're trying to protect a brand. And I'm so sorry, but this isn't going to cut it anymore. And I think people that are, straggling that line as these so-called leftist anti-imperialists should be called out for pushing actual imperialism and for really siding with all the people that we just fucking mentioned, all the warmongers and all the neo-Nazis and all of that. Because that's exactly, you're manufacturing consent. You're allowing that narrative to still exist where it shouldn't exist because it is a false narrative. And it's that fucking simple. Code Pink, another one.
Oh
shit,
Pink, this one hurts.
Another one. If you've been paying attention, you've been seeing Code Pink kind of go in this route. When I was in New York, actually, for the first iteration of the, no war with Ukraine or no war with Russia, blah, 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 hands off Ukraine. I was there and I filmed the whole thing. And honestly, there was like one good speech. It was Margaret Kimberly's, and the rest was like, there was somebody that mentioned Julian Assange. That's it. Everybody else was like COVID and Trump, and just very much just like very, and I'm not saying this to you guys who are older, right? I'm not saying this to be ageist, but there are a lot of older people that are in charge of Code Pink that need to delegate because they're not in line with what's happening now. They're completely out of touch with what's been happening. And one of our friends who is a member was completely aghast by this, say, I can't believe that this is like, wow. And, and we'll see what they do from here on out. But
what they should do, liaise. We said this with Steve. Just be liaisons. Pass it on over now, right? I hate to quote Eric Swalwell, but pass the mic or pass whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? Hand it on over. You're done.
So again, it's the same shit. You can condemn Russia and challenge the U.S. It's like they
same virtue signaling bullshit.
Fucking shit. It's like they do that, right?
Same virtue signaling bullshit.
I had to put the counters to that. Eva Bartlett, great tweet. Where's the outrage for the people of Donbass, Gaza, Syria, Yemen, Iraq, Serbia? These people have been silent for so long. All of a sudden, just because the media hits the button, they all follow along like little fucking robot cocks that they are.
Ooh,
and this is just the next thing. This is just like, we live in a cartoon, right, Steve? Facebook is reversing its ban on posts praising Ukraine's far-right Azov battalion. They don't even call it neo-Nazi, but this is exactly what it is. And it says Facebook is backtracking on its ban.
Moonwalking, fam.
Posts praising their role in defending Ukraine or being in Ukraine's National Guard will be allowed. The company will continue to ban hate speech and hate symbolism, a Meta spokesperson told Insider. It don't those contradict? We're talking about neo-Nazis. Don't those contradict? Well, we're going to make an excuse because the State Department and, the intelligence and people in charge of this country decided that we're going to make it a complete excuse. But please, by all means, you do live in a free country and you're on the right side of things. It's a fucking shit show, Pasta. Yep. We get things taken down for the slightest bit, and now these people have full right to push these neo-Nazis. I don't know what to tell you. The fucking marmot. I need the marmot to go somewhere to come back and send us into another timeline, another dimension, another universe. I also need a Matrix bar. But, that's beside the point.
We got a refrigerator full of them, ladies and gentlemen, and that is it. Anything else from that subject? Oz, you got anything to say about this? Because you got so aggravated, one of your buttons from your overalls broke off. So if you got something to say.
Yeah, I've got something to say. Where in the history of this country in the last 40 years have we ever not backed or put up fascist regimes somewhere? When have we not done it? And
I know.
How would this country like it if Putin put military bases along Mexico's border and Canada's border? Do you think this country wouldn't be shitting their pants? Are you kidding me? So that's what I got to say about it. Keep it up, guys. Keep going.
The audience can hear you there. Obi-Wan
the audience loves you, Oz. Yes, they
beautiful.
Love us.
Check out Roar Media. How is you guys have a show tonight, or are you guys kicking it back?
We're gonna see. We're getting ready for a game show fundraiser, so we're gonna try and do a sample of that tonight. Should be a lot of fun. 7 p.m. Pacific, I hope.
Ooh.
All right. Nice. Okay. What's going on over there at Roar Media? Check them out on Rokfin or on YouTube. All right. So all the people who out there who's been watching the show, Vince Fontaine over here, Just like want to send some love out to Slow News Day over there and their fucking marmot. We'll be hearing from them shortly. That's all. We have no Super Rays right now except Universal Earthling and Joan Zyback. Thank you for the Super Ray contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch, fam.
Fam, this next section you really wanted to talk about Ajamu Baraka.
Ajamu. I mean, I hate we're bringing two bad faith podcasts in one show. We were supposed to do this one a couple days ago. We never got to it because we had a long show. But we're going to finish it up because
we always have a long show.
But it's important, and I wanted to point out some of the stuff that Ajamu kind of brought to the table. And this was a show I thought that Brianna Joy Gray was more in her wheelhouse, understanding what's going on, electoral politics. She understands the pulse of the progressives and whatnot. So she brought on a good panel over here to kind of talk about a few things. And it's just two clips, guys. So hang on in there. We're almost done with the show. But I mean, this first one was great because it was like, he had talked about this whole mentality when it comes and it stems from cancel culture, the way we don't want to go talk to people who think differently than us, right? And one of the things that the MCSC network, gets a lot of accolades for, one of the things we do across the board is we talk to everybody.
And a lot of shit for.
Right? Homegrown Glory Jones going out to rallies. We witnessed this. This is something we do. Let's go talk to everybody. How many times have we stepped into a Trump rally, start interviewing people, talking to people? So, we'll talk to everybody. And Ajamu talks about the importance of doing that because what happens if you don't talk to those other people? What becomes of them? And for me, it's always like, listen, obvious. We got to be able to sit there and prioritize the evil, right? The evil letter. Where's your scale? The Trumper with the Make America Great Again hat, drinking Meisterbrau's on his porch, using bad pronouns and all that shit. Awful, stupid. Yeah, but he doesn't have power. Actual neo-Nazis in the Ukraine, power. You know what I'm saying? It's like, let's be able to differentiate between
Victoria Nuland, power.
Milo, not a lot of power. I couldn't even think about any like right winger kind of thing that
I mean, they have influence, but
influence,
but
not power.
War
influence means go talk, go speak. Yeah. You don't like what Jack Posobiec has to say? Go talk to him. Hey, I think you're a Zionist.
Or counteract what he says.
Exactly.
Glory did. He's
a Ziacon, not a neocon. We talked about this. Jack Posobiec is a Ziacon. Let's go ahead. Let's roll the clip. Is the first part of Ajamu, just two parts, and we'll get you out of here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for holding on for such a long show.
2019.
Ajamu, Q just referenced several legitimate concerns that could be raised but aren't being raised. And I've heard other interlocutors, including Professor Richard Wolff, make the argument that even if we are disdainful of and reject the, anti-immigrant, anti-Semitic, other kinds of bigoted statements that are associated with some people who are participating in the protest, that the left should be taking this opportunity to radicalize to the left people who are participating currently and to kind of own the idea that this could be the kind of workers' movement that shuts down capital and has a kind of political effect that the left should, take part in more frequently. What do you make of that argument?
Well, we saw the response to our good friend to his, I think, very sensible kind of analysis and position. And the response reflected as a kind of dangerous, simple approach to trying to understand what might be the content of some of these rebellions, if you will. There's no question that there are obvious right-wing forces involved in this truckers' convoy. There's no question that there is some agendas that are clearly in alignment with the agenda of the far right in the U.S. But to just dismiss these truckers as just representatives of the petty bourgeoisie because they are owner-operators, to suggest that there are not concerns that truckers have who are part of the working class that aren't being articulated when it seems like a few of those issues are. It does not lend itself to any kind of strategy on the part of left forces to be able to understand and, in fact, attempt to win some of those elements over if they were, in fact, winnable. Instead, what happens is that these forces are basically stigmatized and not thought about. There's no contest for these individuals. In fact, that's what's been happening for the last 3 decades. So basically, the only elements talking to these confused workers are, in fact, those rightist elements. And liberals and left liberal folks, they kind of talk down their nose at these people. And the result is Trumpism, the truckers' convoy, and all of these manifestations of the obvious right. But as I think most people know, I'm concerned about these elements, but I'm more concerned about the neoliberal right that's in power in most of these Western nations.
Fam, I think the worst thing we can do to a racist person from the United States, or we're here in the States, excuse me, is not talk to them, right? I mean, because then they're going to only talk to other racists. And, we can say that a lot of people who are racist have been programmed to be racist. They've been taught to be racist. Well, we have the ability to unteach them. And, just by simply talking to them. But if you kind of participate in this cancel culture, you're acting as a vessel for the ruling class, because that's what they want. They want to make sure that people with different opinions and different thought processes never talk to each other. I mean, that's why I always said it's kind of awful when Bernie Sanders would go, Donald Trump is the most racist, sexist, all these other things. You're actually saying that the people who support him are racist and sexist, whatnot. Especially when, it's hypocritical too as well, because then you're turning around and supporting Joe Biden, which is kind of laughable in itself. But when that kind of rhetoric came along, as opposed to, let me go into West Virginia and talk to people who think differently than me. Let me go talk to people who are on the right wing, even the far right of America and whatnot. And let's see where we can reach common ground, and let's see where we can come together. By the way, I just want to say this is kind of like where you get that vintage Brie, where she asks a great question to get a great answer. And this is more suited for her right now, I think and I'm not trying to be, up on my ivory tower looking down. I'm just saying I much more appreciated this interview than the Matt Dust one.
Yeah, well, this isn't foreign policy. This is more so, this, and I'm glad she brought Ajamu. But here's the thing. It's bigger than just not, than not talking to the racists. It's the fact that what happens with that person is they're going to become exactly what you are calling them out, even if they're not racist, even if they just supported Donald Trump for XYZ reason. In 2016, like I say all the time, Bernie Sanders actually talked to these people. In 2020, he vilified them. And there was a reason why those people then went and voted in 2016. When he was cheated, they went and voted for Donald Trump in large facts and swaths of people, because that's the point. Like, if you don't go after these people, then they're going to go to wherever they feel welcome. And of course, the white working class has gone to the right, because the Democrats have become a bunch of elitist intellectuals that only make fun of people who are working class. And the left in the United States is exactly the same. They're calling these truckers petty bourgeois just because they own their truck, or if assuming that everybody owns their truck, and all calling them blanket, all of them right-wing neo-Nazis and fascists. And it's this whole thing right now, right? And so I think that's exactly the point. Like, this is what they do want. They want people to be divided in order for them to have this fold. And unfortunately, too much of the left has fallen into right in line with this very, very obvious intelligence ploy, where they allow themselves to be manipulated for these exact reasons. And all you're doing is growing the movement against what you're supposed to advocate, progressivism, socialism, whatever it is. You're making people hate that and blame that, instead of understanding really what the situation is, because you're just writing them off as some sort of Nazis. Of course, now what we know, while simultaneously cheering on neo-Nazis, foreign policy-wise, or, hello, Brianna doing great right now, talking about this situation and simultaneously bringing in Matt Dust. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
And it's refreshing to see somebody like Ajamu who kind of recognizes power. And when you think about, the Convo Couch where we're at today, I think is, why we're closer to the slow news days, the Last American Vagabond, the Whitney Webbs, the Jason Bermases, is because how you simply view power. And, as a progressive, I guess, as what we were when we got here, is we can still say, okay, but you have to understand the differences. Like, yes, we want to talk about the way things are perceived culturally out there and whatnot. And it's important. But, Ajamu puts it plain and simple. And in this next clip, he even kind of goes into it a little bit different, is that you have to understand power. You have to understand what the bigger threat is. And it's not the truckers in the caravan. Those are the people we need to be embracing as sorts, having a workers movement. It's the neoliberal state. It's the fascist state. Yeah. That's the issue. That's the problem. And that's something that progressives have not kept their eye on. It's been, we'll push them left. Oh, can you believe what that person said? These people don't care about poor people. They're Nazis. They have no power. You have to concentrate on power. And the last clip.
Yeah, so Justin Trudeau implementing this emergency act seemed to be a real turning point in the coverage I observed from left media, at least, where there was a flatter, more antagonistic kind of coverage that occurred until this really kind of aggressive infringement on speech that the left very quickly anticipated could disproportionately affect them, as it often does, came into play. Ajamu Baraka, you tweeted, neoliberals are exposing themselves as most effective agents of fascism. The Emergency Act in Canada, evoked in opposition to the truckers' action, can, quote, temporarily suspend parts of Canadian Constitution that protect free movement and assembly. What do you make of all of this?
Neoliberal fascism. That for me, the major threat to democracy is not coming from the still disorganized and clownish far right, so-called far right, but the neoliberal rightists who control the state, and they have been involved working very closely with the extended ideological apparatus of the state. Private corporations, media corporations, to systematically narrow the approved areas of discourse in the U.S., in Canada, without much opposition at all. It's one of the most dangerous developments, in my opinion, since the Second World War. So no, I'm more concerned about these kinds of moves. The Emergency Act in Canada, the censorship we see from the big tech corporations in the U.S., all of these are part of a pattern of conditioning the public with the support of left forces also, unfortunately, to accept Big Brotherism. It's Orwellian, and I don't understand why more people don't recognize this. And they always use the right as the entry point to begin to provide more power to the state.
Wow. Bam.
I mean, this is what we've been saying forever. I mean, they always use the right to come in as the bait, and then they come after the left.
It works.
This is what we've been telling the left forever. I mean, this is fucking ridiculous. How do you not see that the freezing of people's assets, the protesters, the pretty much making the mutual aid illegal, the fact of through like criminality through association, the fact that this is a precedent that the Trudeau's government has set, and the censorship and all of that here. How do you not see that is far more fascistic and authoritarian than any of these truckers, even the morons with the one moron with the Nazi flag and the other one with the Confederate flag, which I'm not even going to get in on that, but that's whatever. It's fucking Canada. I don't know why you're so upset. And like, it's just this whole thing. Like, they don't understand power, Pasta. And it's either they don't understand power, which is a lot of people, but it's also a lot of the people who are the influencers, who are the narrative managers. They understand very well. And what they're doing is they're being controlled opposition because they don't want any sort of workers unity to happen. They don't want any sort of workers revolt. What they do want is they want to be the new gatekeepers of the new rebranded liberalism, which is progressivism, as we know, with the Squad and all of that.
Fam, can you blame them? And MSNBC, if they can get those jobs down the road, how much money? Like $30 million a year. That's some cheese over there. We got Fee's last tweet up there, Oz, that we can put up real quick.
You want me to read it?
Yeah. Let's read this. And
did I do this?
Well, no, we did this the other day, but go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, they are, though. 98% of the U.S. left is pro-war, pro-segregation, pro-censorship, pro-mandate, pro-surveillance, pro-police, pro-everything, pro-neo-Nazis. in Ukraine. I mean, now, you see how it keeps getting worse. I mean, there's no left in the United States are completely, entirely co-opted. So, again, congrats to the national security state apparatus for lobotomizing these people. I mean, I really send wow, you did it. Good job. Because, they are right now cheering and protesting, just like they were cheering and protesting in favor of the surveillance state, in favor of medical tyranny, in favor of forced vaccinations in Canada. They're doing the same thing. Oh yeah, let's continue supporting neo-Nazis and the State Department and NATO expansion when NATO should be completely kaput. It should be completely obliterated. But here they are, taking the side of warmongers, the side of the empire, and they feel so good about it. And they're chastising those of us who aren't, as now, once again, the narrative, as he said it, it's always right wingers who support Putin, who support Trump, and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah. But we see you. We see you. The rest of us are here. We see you.
We see you.
Anyway.
By the way, AREM left another Super 8 contribution. Says, movie recommendation, A Long Kiss Goodnight. Have the best weekend. What movies do you like? My favorite movie of all time, believe it or not, is City of God. I think it's one of the most amazing movies.
That's like my mom's favorite movie, which is funny because you're the same.
I like Isuma Mata Bien and all that other shit. It's great movies. I love those movies and whatnot. 29th Street is one of my favorite movies in America, an American-made movie in the States. It's the story about Frank Pesh, who won the first New York State lottery. Guys, 199. Let's get that one more, get 200 in there. Fam, that's all for the Super Race. But really quick, I'm going to let some friends close out the show. I just want to say something, and I'm going to pass it over right now that, halfway through the show, kind of looking up and seeing some great people in this studio right now, some friends of mine, whatnot. I just got really, really happy because I'm very thankful and, I don't take it for granted that I get to do this stuff, and you guys really help us out. And it is a blessing, really, to be able to go on the interwebs and say what I feel. You know what I'm saying? When I was first out here, I was trying to, be a piece of furniture for some people who write a script or whatever the case may be, and move around and jump around at their leisure and, get out and express what they had written on the paper. And now I get to do this, and it's been amazing. We're coming up on 5 years, I believe, by the end of the year. So I want to bring in some of the people who really I call fam. I love them. And I'm going to let you close out the show with them, with you, fam, because they were cheering on a lot of the stuff you were saying, and just, they think so highly of you. So I want you to get a chance to say love and aloha to our friends. Guys, 191 people.
Don't bring that aloha shit in here.
Typical fam shit. Hold on.
She's told C's last tweet was actually on point, I have to say. Anyway, we're not having that conversation now, but just had to point that out. The camera's going to be out of focus, but okay.
No, it's autofocus.
So, guys, ladies and gentlemen, while they shuffle around, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And yeah, I obviously had my espresso today because I haven't drank coffee in forever. And when I do, it's like a crack, like a shot of, I don't know, I've never done crack. So a whiff of crack or whatever. Inhaling. I don't know.
Just trying to get lower.
Hi, Glory.
Hey, Fee.
What is up? What are you doing in the studio? What are you both doing?
Crap. No, because the Rokfin's on a delay.
Wait,
so.
yeah.
Oh, well, you want
to can't see shit.
Yeah.
Go to this shit. Go down there.
What the fuck are you
doing? Then why did you leave it on the
right?
Super Race, guys. I have response.
All right, guys.
And you can't switch for a second.
Okay. Is that better? Do you feel better?
What's up, children? Did you guys? What's on your minds as we close out the show, guys? I just want to hear from you. I've been talking this whole time.
Well, go ahead.
God, a lot of things. Are we just going with things regarding Ukraine, or are we also?
No. What's on your mind? Like, we just talked about Ukraine for like 3 hours. Go ahead.
Okay.
You know you're watching.
I'm sorry.
It's about to get interesting.
Yeah. Let me just preface everything by saying, Assange people, y'all know I love you. WikiLeaks, a lot of love and respect for you. A lot of that, Steve hooked up with the Vault 7 hoodie. Julian, love you. All respect in the world for everyone. But for fucking fuck's sake, WikiLeaks.
Yo.
Are you trying to tell me that you don't get a comment from Julian Assange on anything for ages, except when it's to promote some fucking state-funded app for the people of Ukraine that's very much in line with, you know, the pro-State Department point of view, the pro-West point of view on the Ukraine situation. Like, are you kidding me, WikiLeaks? Like, we've been so nice. We've been so nice. Like, we know that there's highly regarded, distinguished human rights lawyers on the legal team. So, of course, they got to be a little compromised and pro-West and pro those talking points to a certain degree. But for fuck's sake, do you reach out to Julian for this after we've been asking to hear from him for how fucking long? Brother, like, we're just trying to get this man free. We don't care about no fucking, like, maintaining this whole human rights bullshit paradigm that's only ever used for regime change. Like, we don't care about your little lawyer careers. We want you to scumbag it to be lawyers, for fuck's sake, bro. Like, please, WikiLeaks, you can't seriously tell me that after all this time, you just now got a comment from Julian Assange on something. Is that even real? And if it is, get gone, bro. Like, what the fuck?
3 years. 3 years of nothing. No comments. There's been nothing going on at all over the last 3 years that bears a comment. Nothing at all. There's nothing at all that the people that run the media, the social media account at WikiLeaks, thought to ask for a comment on over the last 3 years.
Not even just saying, hey, Julian, how are you feeling today? Because Lord knows we need to fucking know that if we're trying to save his life after he's had 2 fucking strokes.
No, after NATO doesn't get to use Ukraine as a puppet state to further advance itself to Russia's border. That's the only time. And it's product placement. It's fucking marketing. You do a commercial. That's your comment. You do a commercial. No, dude, I don't fucking buy it. Nobody
buys it.
Dude, they put out the WikiLeaks Twitter account put out a poll.
A fucking you're talking about the poll. Okay.
That said, is Ukraine Russia's? And it was like Libya, or they had the nerve to put Yugoslavia in there. That was cute. Afghanistan or like Iraq or some shit like that.
Some bullshit.
And so I quote tweeted it with, Hillary, this you? That hurts, man.
To show you co-option is everywhere.
It does. And it's like, oh,
WikiLeaks is getting ratio.
We're so
WikiLeaks
nice about it too,
ratio.
guys. We really are so nice about it because Lord knows we don't like lawyers.
Yeah.
We don't like institutional shit. But like, for fuck's sake, we just wanted to hear from the man. We just wanted to hear how he's doing because he's a fucking political prisoner and we need to be up on that shit. We just want more communication between what's directly happening with Julian in the case and activism, so we know what to do there. So we can do our best to get him fucking free because we all want to hear from him as we have very valid concerns for him. Then, lo and behold, we didn't get damn near any fucking updates until Kaylee and Misty had to blow smoke up their ass because they were too busy hyping up the fucking Dow. And it's like, yes, great. I appreciate the Dow, but the deadline to submit your appeal passed and we did not know if it was submitted. Like,
well, it's important.
I'm sorry to like cut and just completely like let all this shit out here. Like, wow.
You guys should have you done a show? I don't think I've caught it. If you have,
no, man. The interwebs were not cooperating this morning. It's been
because a lot of people may not have caught this and all that.
It just happened while you guys went on the air.
It literally happened on air. I found the tweet and I showed it to Steve and I was like, Steve, look at this fucking shit.
And look, here's the thing. When Glory says we've been nice, we've also been like really, really, really careful in not trying to step in and talk about the legal team's performance because neither of us are lawyers. We're not experts in UK or international law. We don't know but there are things that have happened throughout this process that even lay people can point to and go, that makes negative
problem.
sense. This does not, regardless of what the realities may or may not be on the surface, it looks terrible. And then when you scratch the surface, it looks even worse. So it's one of those things where when you're dealing with what is ultimately the justification for international jurisdiction over the press, and your case has crumbled before you, and your main witness has recanted all of their testimony and bragged about the immunity deal he squeezed out of you so he could go get more crimes done. When all of these things are happening, if I don't know, dude, it raises a forest of red flags to me. I'm not.
It does. It really does. Really does.
Sorry, I'm just gonna, did we? Oh, okay, never mind. We read all the tips. I guess I didn't see that one.
Yeah. Also, okay, this is I don't want to say it's a more positive turn, but like it is something that I wanted to get out of there since this morning. If y'all know me, you know I've been talking a lot about Pakistani YouTube streamer Mr. Wilson. Well, they might reach a settlement on his case very soon, possibly this coming Monday. And then if you can find it in your hearts, the family would really appreciate donating to the legal funds. And to do that, you subscribe to Mr. Wilson is Live on YouTube, and you'll find the link to donate there. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there for anybody who knows Mr. Wilson. He's a Pakistani YouTube streamer that helped 2 or 3 Korean women escape an abusive rich scumbag, and then in turn the guy tried to is pressing false charges on him. So because of that, want him free. Yeah, just wanted to put that out there too. I totally forgot in the midst of being angry about shit. Yeah.
Well, fams, thank you for coming on. Steve, do you have anything else to say to our lovely Combo Couch audience?
No, we weren't doing a show this weekend.
Oh, I guess I should plug
something. But yeah. Well, real quick, I want to know why the fuck Sean Penn was in Ukraine with a goddamn film crew right before all this started happening. Sean Penn got to interview El Chapo. Sean Penn gets to go into like all these hot zones in war zone. Sean Penn, I think, is in charge for all of the false flaggery that we're going to see.
Yeah, that's why Pasta is gonna go there, and we're gonna make our own. Fams, like we're serious. We want to go. We want to go to exactly. We want to go to Moscow, and Pasta wearing that hat, it'll be perfect.
Oh my god.
Plug your stuff.
Yeah, I do have stuff to plug. This weekend. So tomorrow at I believe 6:30 Pacific time, 9:30 East Coast time, the Political Matrix is doing their weekly Saturday stream, and I will be filling in for Marcus Urage, young Morpheus Cage.
Nice.
And yeah. So check that out when you get to it. Also this Sunday, the announcement came out recently this Sunday at 8:15 p.m. East Coast time. So that's 5:15 p.m. Pacific time. I'm going to be on Sabby Sab's Women's Summit. And yeah.
So am I. But
yeah, he's going to be on there too. And so is Misty.
Yeah, so is Marianne Williamson. I'm actually upset that I'm not on there at the same time because that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
that would actually be nice.
Hope that it's a consistent link and just crash it. Yeah. I was on like 800 podcasts this week. You could check all of those out. Union of the Unwanted, the Legit Bat podcast, a couple other ones that names I forget now. And then, morning show stuff next week. And we'll be back to regular Slow News Day streams after that, but there's not one this Sunday.
All right, guys. Thanks so much, fams, for being there. Have fun with all the fans. And I look forward to a Matrix bar, Steve. And
I'm hiding it in your room. I'm hiding it.
All right, you better fucking hide it then. Don't hide it too hard, because okay. But yeah, all right. Thanks guys for tuning in. Very much love you all on Rokfin on YouTube. Stay safe. No war. Fuck the leftist cucks. What else? That's it. Convo out. Peace.
Love y'all.